It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Shelley Brisbane from the Texas Standard Radio Show joins us as we talk about, 2026. What is Apple going to do in 2026 with AI, with Macs, and with iPhones? Apple's future on this show next. Every year at this time, we'd like to survey our audience to find a little bit more about you. As you may know, we respect your privacy. We don't do anything. In fact, we can't do anything to learn about who you are. And that's fine with me. I like that. But it helps us with advertising. It helps us with programming to know a little bit about those of you who are willing to tell us. Your privacy is absolutely respected. We do get your email address, but that's just in case there's an issue. We don't share that with anybody. What we do share is the aggregate information that we get from these surveys. Things like 80% of our audience buy something they heard in an ad on our shows, or 75% of our audience are IT decision makers. Things like that are very helpful with us when we talk to advertisers. They're also very helpful to us to understand what operating systems you use, what content you're interested in. So, enough. Let me just ask you, if you will, go to twit.tv/survey26 and answer a few questions. It should only take you a few minutes of your time. We do this every year. It's very helpful to us. Your privacy is assured, I promise you. And of course, if you're uncomfortable with any question or you don't want to do it at all, that's fine too. But if you want to help us out a little bit, twit.tv/survey26. Thank you so much.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 1006, recorded Tuesday, January 6th, 2026. Unemployable. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show where we talk about the latest Apple news with our esteemed panel of guests. Now, as you probably know if you saw last week's episode, Alex Lindsay has been spirited away to the spaceship campus at Apple Computer, where he will no longer be allowed to podcast ever again. But good news, Shelley Brisbane's here. It's good to see you, Shelley, from the beautiful Texas Standard. Many years you've been wearing the blue bandana. Yes?
The blue bandana is new, but I've been here for many years. Yes.
Okay. I didn't realize. I thought the blue bandana was a long tradition.
It is our 10th anniversary blue bandana.
Oh, okay. What color was the bandana before then?
There wasn't one, Leo.
Well, how do you do a Texas Standard radio without
I know.
a bandana? Bandana.
See, you didn't say any better than I did.
You gotta have a bandana without a bandana. You know, I remember meeting Willie Nelson. Got to go on his bus, and Willie keeps in the bus a store of red bandanas and a little bottle of Old Whiskey River to give out to visitors. So somewhere, I don't know where it went, I have a red bandana from Mr. Willie Nelson, ladies and gentlemen. But of course, that was 30 years ago, so I doubt I still have it. The Whiskey River, long gone. Andy Anako, also here, the author of this fine volume, Cyberspeak, an online dictionary.
Baby. And the great thing is, like, these 1990s book covers, they don't age poorly at all. It's still just as cutting edge and timely.
Hey, I could have done that.
Those aren't my teeth,
this is if you're listening to the show and you're saying, what is he talking about when he's talking about Maryland's curse? Just that's page 121 right there of this fabulous glossary of Cyberspeak. I ordered this.
Thank you.
And I've been meaning to thank you for this fine volume. Also with this, part of it is I want to have a copy of everybody's books. So I have a special shelf dedicated to host volumes. And now this will take its pride of place there. Mr. Jason Snell from sixcolors.com.
Do you have a copy
to find him
of Providing Internet Services via macOS, one of the finest ways to serve web pages on classic macOS by me and Carl Steadman? Because that's the only book that I actually traditionally published at all. And I might I don't know if I have any extra copies left at this point. I wanted to thank you because this is a 90s throwback in another way. I'm just going to point out again, your panelists were all people who worked at the late lamented Mac User magazine in the 90s. Shelley and I were on staff. I was actually doing a research project the other day, and I found a news section that was full of these nerdy internet articles about how things were happening on the internet.
Amazing.
They were all bylined by me and Shelley, and of course, our columnist was Andy Ihnatko. So that's why they had to shut down the magazine.
Andy Ihnatko of Mac User magazine.
Yeah, that's why they had to shut it down, because it was too good.
Yes, it was that. No, it was Macworld that came in the box with the original Mac. It was a subscription to Mac.
We don't talk about that.
That's
I don't talk about that. Jason might, but I don't talk about that.
I mean, all the assets of Mac User were purchased by Macworld eventually, so...
And now,
by assets, I mean me. Oh, no, I don't.
And Leo, if you need a book I wrote in the 90s, I can hook you up.
Oh, good. All right. Yeah, I got to have the complete set.
I might have 2 copies of my stupid book, so it's fine. If you want to run WebStar...
Oh my God!
Eudora Internet Mail Server, Mail Share.
Eudora, I wish I still had Eudora.
The idea that you would run and I did, you could run, and I wrote a book about it, an entire internet server on a Mac running classic Mac OS, an operating system that did not have protected memory or preemptive multitasking or anything that you would want in a server, is amazing. But we did it because we were maniacs. That's just how it was back then in the early days of the internet.
I think AUX is ready for a comeback.
You had to roll your own, when men were men and
we had a mail. We hosted our own before we were allowed to have internet at Mac User magazine, because I showed up there as a fresh-faced youngster from Berkeley, and I was told that we did not have internet. I had to get a modem and dial into the Berkeley internet in order to get on it. But we did have, there was one room that had internet, and that was where Stefan Samoji, who was our sort of tech editor, lived, and he had an SE30 that was running MailShare, a classic Mac app that was our POP SMTP server back in the day, and that is the true story. Nobody cares, but I'm just going to say that's the true story of why Macs were internet servers, is because there were crazy Mac users who were like, I'm going to do an internet server, and who is going to stop us? You just get that Mac on the internet and say this is a website now, and that in the early days, that's how it worked.
I still remember the fax I got from the editor-in-chief saying there is an upstart young firebrand in here named Jason, and
Slow him down.
He doesn't care whose toes he steps on with all his newfangled ideas.
Yeah, I think the truth was nobody knew it was happening in that room where Stefan used to have his office. It was just in there, and nobody knew it was there, even in a Mac magazine.
Wow. It was just on a table in the corner. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine current generations of people just really don't have any idea what it was like without the internet. I mean, always on. It's like having hot running water. It's like
they never heard of us. They never heard of us having a slip server where it's like first you have to get your modem to dial into the internet, not like through something else. It's like no, the connection was through a modem, and basically here are 5 points of failure
uphill.
And any one of them goes
uphill
bad,
both ways.
You will
That's
not get to the internet. Yeah.
Those were the days.
Anyway, you're tuned in to MacBreak 90s, a nostalgia podcast about when the internet was hard, but nobody
young
was
and
on.
hard
I
to
sure
make happen.
hope this Whitewater scandal doesn't bring that young, energetic Bill Clinton down.
Well, actually, we can do a little bit more recent spelunking by looking at Jason's piece in Macworld. 2025 will be remembered for what Apple didn't deliver.
Yeah, so every year, because I have to write, it used to be 50, now it's only 24, but columns on Macworld in a given year. And so you know what you want to do. You know, Leo, because you have to do 50-odd podcasts a year for every one of the podcasts.
And they are odd,
let
me assure you.
And it's hard to come up with things to talk about sometimes. So I do 2 pieces. I do a predictions piece, and I do a grading my predictions piece. And this year was really hilarious because if we go back a year to the beginning of last year, if you recall, Apple had promised a lot of things for Apple Intelligence but hadn't yet delivered. And so in that moment, I really thought, well, this is the year where Apple delivers. And instead it went another way, which is this is the year that Apple comes out in the spring and says, we can't deliver on our promises. And the whole narrative changed. So that, for
and
me,
we're going
that
to
was
fire
the big
or
story.
get rid of or let go every single person involved with that. and start over.
Yeah. But it's amazing to think back 12 months. You know, we all have internalized now that day where Apple declared we aren't going to ship the thing we promised, that we were putting ads out on TV during the NFL playoffs. Like, it's not happening. Did it even exist? Yeah. Nobody really knows. A lot of people lost their jobs. And the best part about this is it still doesn't exist, because Apple, when they announced that, they cryptically said in the coming year, and people had to ask, like, what do you mean by in the coming year? And they said that means 2026. Okay, yeah. You could have said that.
Year. We're in it, we're in it now.
So maybe this year will be the year of Apple Intelligence, but last year certainly turned out to be more the year that Apple Intelligence failed and that Apple failed to deliver.
What do you think this article will be like on Christmas Eve 2026?
Man, I did a new predictions article, and I do think that my prediction for Apple Intelligence is that they will ship things, and that things will be better than they are now, but not good enough. I think that's where they will go. It will be one of those things, right, where it'll be like, oh, Siri is better, and you can do some of the stuff they promised, and there'll be like a litany of things that just don't quite work right. I think that's the safest prediction to make, is that they will absolutely ship something, but and if we look back 12 months, we'll be like, oh yeah, it's way better than it was 12 months ago, and then there'll be that litany of complaints that we have, because nothing is ever perfect.
If Apple, and I think this is the consensus that Apple's going to do this, if Apple uses Google's Gemini model as Siri, I think it could be better than we think. Gemini's pretty 100%. Impressive.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And a white labeled version that's basically custom built for use at Apple's cloud server by Apple and Google. That could be really good. It really could.
Yeah.
So maybe you'll be able to say next Christmas Eve, you know what? This was the year we got real intelligence in Siri.
Maybe. I think that's a possibility. I definitely think that it's a possibility. I think more likely, like I said, I feel like there will be issues that will come up. I think the question is that we're all going to see this year is how much of Apple's failing with Apple Intelligence has been that they can't do the models, that the models aren't very good. And if that's the case, then using Gemini as a white labeled model, so like white label, for people who don't know, the idea there is not branded as Gemini, but we all know it's Gemini. But from Apple's perspective, from the user's perspective, it's just Apple's cloud AI model. We don't know where it is. Well, even if that's good, my next question is, how well is it integrated into Apple software?
That's the hard part.
That's the other
not Google,
piece, right?
That's Apple, right?
Is you've got to integrate, and we see a little of it with Apple Intelligence now, where it's like the image playground or it's the writing tools, and it's like, how do you build UI, Apple level, Apple, quality bar, as they would say, UI that has an LLM as a back end? Because what Apple seems committed to, and I actually support this, is if you just do a chatbot, like, that's not good enough for your iPhone interface. It needs to be an interface that leverages the power of that model. So that's the other piece of this, is even if they get Gemini and it's great, they have to build all the connections and have them work well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and do they prioritize particular ones in order to make a big show of something that works and does very well while leaving other things to lie fallow? Is my HomePod Mini still going to be stupid while my Mac is smarter about what? Is it going to be writing tools? Is it going to be fancy things like image playgrounds that nobody particularly likes? But where does Apple want to show itself to be better than they are now?
Yeah, and it's still a moving target as to what the users actually want. The users are going to react to the AI tools that absolutely speak to their experience and make their lives better. They're not going to react to, hey, wow, though now I can make my Memoji look like a scene from The Godfather. Again, nice demo, but nobody cares. But when it comes to being able to ask Shlomo to essentially do the sort of task that would take me about 3 or 4 days worth of creating automation actions and automation workflows, but now you're just doing it automatically, saying, hey, I want every Tuesday, I want you to take the data from these from these URLs in this bookmark list. I want you to format it this way and then reform it that way, send it to these 3 people, create a spreadsheet, and then post it and then archive it. And then suddenly this thing that might take you 45 minutes once every week is now just something that simply happens as though you have an actual assistant. Like assistants usually used to mean, this is like the kid, the child in the house when you say, hey, go to the living room and turn off the lights. Okay, that's nice, but that's not a real assistant. An assistant makes sure that you don't have to do anything that is easy to explain to somebody else to do.
I think if Apple goes in that direction, it's going to be it might be a big disappointment. You might be writing that article in Christmas Eve, Jason, and saying another year of disappointing results. Because I'll tell you why I say that. Right. Microsoft has attempted this with Copilot, and despite the ads. By the way, if you look at the things that Microsoft shows in its ads, Copilot doing, people have attempted with the actual Copilot on Windows, and it doesn't do it. It doesn't do it very well. If you look at what Microsoft's done by incorporating AI into its desktop operating system, it's been, in my opinion, a massive bust. And I really don't think it's what people want. On the other hand, if you look at what ChatGPT 5.2 is doing and Gemini 3 is doing, Nano Banana is doing, which is their image tool. If you look at, in my opinion, Claude Code, which is Anthropic's best, Opus 4.5 model, these things really are doing some amazing things. The mistake is trying to shoehorn it into the old way of working to say, well, no, you're going to use it to build a spreadsheet. I don't think that's what Apple should do. Now, Apple may do that, and they may do Emoji Playground again, which was a massive error.
It's also so what Shelley says about the implementation and what they choose to do and what they choose to put forward, I think is a good one, because I think Apple, right? It's like an LLM isn't a feature.
That's the real question. Does Apple understand what it needs to do?
Right, and it's also what can it do that people want, which is. Ideally, you not just give them something that people don't want, but shows off your tech, which I would argue is what Image Playground is. And you would do something that people want. And when you think about it, you can get excited. If you think about the Claude Opus, 3.5 or whatever, these thinking models, the idea that instead that I'm a big fan of user automation. Back in the day, AppleScript, Python, shortcuts on the Mac, right? If
Claude
you
Code could do all that, by the way, beautifully.
Exactly. So this is the thing: is what if
already
if we can leave this to the point where instead of you having to write a shortcut that most people are not going to write, you say, I want to do this, and it writes the shortcut, which is kind of what it wants to do, what Apple wants to do with by getting all of these intents, the app intents, into shortcuts, is gives a central system the ability and the lexicon to control everything that's on your device. That would be the
smart way to do it.
If you can say, I want to do this, and it may do it, or it may say, I built a shortcut that does that, and now you can just tell me, do this, and I'll run the shortcut, or you can just run the shortcut. That unlocks a lot of power, because in the end, the user just wants to go from point A to point B, and the how it gets there doesn't necessarily matter. And then if you're a little bit more of a power user, like we all are, then maybe you look at the shortcut or you look at the Python script and you say, I want to make some changes, and that's great. And that's like, now you're in Claude Code, all of that. But I think that there's a lot of potential there, but Apple has to have the feeling like they can build a good interface for it. It has a good use case, and it gives good results. And I think that's the challenge, is getting all of those, because sometimes you build a really great interface and the results from the LLM are bad, and sometimes it's the reverse, which is the results are fine but the interface is terrible. So they gotta, and then the worst one is it all works great and nobody wants to use it. So they gotta hit the trifecta on this. I think they could. I actually, this is why I'm excited about Apple playing with this stuff and having a good model to use with Google's Gemini model, if that's what they're doing, because one of the things that we really need is a company that cares about the end product and feature, thinking about how to apply LLM technology to solve problems, and not just say, here's a box, fill it with whatever, which is where we are right now.
There's a really big picture disconnect between what companies want to provide for AI LLMs features and what users want. For one thing, I don't think users know what they want, but for another thing, I think most companies, Microsoft included, companies that have put AI in products that already exist, here's your AI, I think they are not getting the response they hope from their users, which is, yay, thank you. Right. AI is both a tool of people who market products and a tool of businesses, but it is not a tool for end users. You can talk all day long about how many people use ChatGPT, and it's true. I can open up an app and ask it a question. 800 million people a week. And get an answer, but that's not integrating it into my life in a way that would cause me to choose or prefer a platform because their AI was better. So if Apple has had all this time when they've not been ahead in AI, and I kind of secretly hoped that what they were doing was figuring out a use case that makes sense from an end user perspective rather than the perspective of the people who are, in business to make AI happen. And I don't think AI has happened to a large degree. Even as I say, you can absolutely say how many people are using ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini, and those are real numbers. I don't question them, but I do question whether people are willing or interested in having AI integrated into their life in the way that the people who are providing it seem to want to do it.
Yeah, and it's also very possible that everybody in this conversation and outside this conversation in the industry is trying to figure out how to make better horse-drawn wagons, because there's great technology for making the wagon much, much better, but they don't understand that, this is not the application. We're trying to take this new idea of internal combustion engines and trying to figure out how to make an existing technology or an existing use case better with it. That it's possible, because you think about what smartphones were like before the iPhone, or actually not before the iPhone, but let's say before mobile broadband was a big, cheap, affordable, accessible, reliable thing. That it was largely, hey, let's take this desktop app and we'll make a version that works on this tiny screen with this very, very hard to type keyboard on it. And that, again, that was a good first swing, and that was a natural reaction, but it didn't really figure out that, no, this is not the sort of thing that is going to, this is not what's going to make this technology really, really great. It's possible that we keep thinking in terms of, hey, let's automate things that we could normally just simply type and describe. Hey, let's have tasks that repetitive tasks we do a lot, and have it do it for us automatically. Maybe the actual best host for AI is actually simply a microphone and an earbud, where you just simply just like you're not really thinking about the applications and the APIs that you're using while you're using your Mac. Maybe we're heading towards a time where you're not even thinking about the applications that are doing things at all. The Wall Street Journal had a couple of really good articles in the past couple of weeks, both of them hinting at, or at least orbiting around Sam Altman's talks about how, hey, we don't see our big competitors in AI as Google. We see our competitors as Apple or Apple's App Store, which if you had to compete with Google, of course, you would want to tell your shareholders that, no, we're not competing with this $3 trillion company. We're competing with something else. But the idea is that he wants the chatbot to be, you're not going to be using the Uber app to book to get a car. You're not going to be surfing for information. You're not going to be buying things. You're not going to be traveling, getting airline tickets through these individual apps or services anymore. These are going to be features of the chatbot, and you just have no idea what's under the hood. All you know is that by saying, hey, I need to be, I've got a meeting in New York City at 1:30 on Tuesday, get me there, and also find me some tickets to a show to see that night. I need to stay the night. And then you get an answer back 30 seconds, 30 minutes later saying, here is your Amtrak ticket, here's your hotel, here are tickets to that show that actually you are already bookmarked. Everything's done for you automatically without any knowledge of what services were used to make that happen. That's possible that's what we're actually waiting for, and that's not going to happen for lack of imagination.
Well, AI aside, will Apple have a big year in 2026 in hardware?
I mean, I think it will. It sounds like it's going to ship its first folding iPhone, and I don't know. There are. This is kind of a weird thing. There's somebody who came up with took the measurements that people claim in the supply chain that this phone is, and they built a 3D model, and then a bunch of people 3D printed it to sort of hold it in your hand. And it's interesting because if this model is right, it's more like a squat Field Notes notebook. It's not tall, right? Like really tall. It's actually sort of squat and a little wide. And when you open it, you get a 4x3. So classic kind of classic iPad and classic TV dimensions. A 4x3 screen that's just like a smaller iPad Mini. And that's interesting because it means that when it's closed, it doesn't feel like a normal phone. It feels like a weird, short and wide phone. But I think it'll be interesting to hear.
Don't we think that's a good idea? That Apple, instead of making something that looks exactly like a Samsung Galaxy Fold, which is phone dimensions, but it just opens up, it does something that's distinct, that's unique, and maybe is going to be a failure, but it is a shot. Right?
You nailed it. You nailed it. It is. They're taking a shot. I think that it may fail because people may reject it because it looks different, but
just fits different in the pocket.
I can see their argument, right? So here's the argument they're going to make. They're going to say, look, if you want a phone, buy a phone. If you want an iPhone, buy an iPhone. We make great iPhones. Buy an iPhone. If you want this thing, you're not buying it because it's a phone. You're buying it because it unfolds and becomes an iPad. And if we make it really tall, you're going to open it and it's going to be this weird kind of tall square thing that is not great. And what you really want is something that's small, and then you open it up and it's an iPad. And that if all you care about is the shape of the phone, buy an iPhone. Don't buy this thing. And I can see the argument. I'm not sure whether it'll work or not, but I can see the argument that if we're going to do this, if you're Apple, let's take a shot and be opinionated and make it something that is great when it unfolds. Because in the end, that's the money moment. Is
we
it
want
unfolds
Apple to have
and becomes
courage.
an iPad?
We want them to live up to that courage. You see, this is the Samsung, and it's really just two side-by-side phones. And for the most part, that's what you got.
Exactly. And if it's truly 4x3, then what they'll say is literally 4x3. Not all iPads are 4x3 now, but when the iPad came out, it was 4x3. It's the same dimensions as the kind of classic iPad. And I think that's going to be their argument: is you're not just buying a phone, you're also buying an iPad, and you open it up wherever you are, and you've got an iPad with you, and then it folds down and goes back in your pocket. And again, I don't know if the market will reject that or not. Although I will say, I can almost with supreme confidence say it'll probably be the best-selling folding phone model ever, just because it's an iPhone. And two, it will probably sell a smaller percentage of Apple's overall iPhone sales than even the Air or the Mini or the Plus, because it'll be expensive and it'll be super niche. And so I'm not even sure we'll be able to judge if it's a flop or not, because I think it's going to be such a niche product that it will take time, and Apple will kind of learn what the issues are. And if they're committed to this category, they'll keep experimenting and making it better. But at some point, you do need to ship something, and that's going to be really like a completely new for Apple iPhone concept. And Apple's great benefit in leaning into the iPad is they have 15 years of history with the iPad. iPad apps are good. Apple does tablet stuff better than Android does, by far. It's always been more successful with it. And so that's an advantage that they can lean into. Whether people care, I don't know.
But I feel like they've really got to have some software value add, especially for the closed phone. Even if the open phone is the reason that you buy it, you're going to have that phone closed in your pocket or purse for some period of time. And I don't just want to see my notifications on that closed screen. I don't know what I want to see. I want Apple to tell me what is the unique proposition from a software point of view for this device, in addition to having that big iPad screen, having that even more portable iPad that comes with me.
So you don't think it'll just be a squat version of the iPhone?
I hope not.
Screen on the front. That they should do something innovative with that front screen.
I think, and they should, and whatever research they do and internal testing they do, they should figure out, because the sort of natural thing that you think is, well, that's where my notifications and my always on display kind of material, my dynamic island kind of material is. What else can we do with that? That screen is not going to be enormous, but it's not going to be so small that it's only notification center in the dynamic island. So let's find something unique to do with it that makes me want that, even if I don't want it out of the box. If you describe it to me and I say, no, that's not for me. If I see that at an Apple store, or if I see an article about it, Apple needs me to want that phone, whether it ends up being the phone I get or not.
It's interesting because Microsoft did attempt this with their Duo. They didn't have any front screen. It was just a little booklet that when you opened it up, it was 4x3, And I think they're failing. And by the way, it didn't have a crease because it was a hinge. We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
But I think their failing was they didn't quite get the software to live up to the promise. I bought it. I thought, hey, this could be really good. People carry notebooks. I think you're right, Jason. You don't sell it as a phone. You sell it as something that can be a phone, but is something more than a phone. In fact, Microsoft didn't even want people to call the Duo a phone.
Right. To be clear, that outside screen will be an iPhone, right? Like it'll have widgets and presumably be always on with widgets and stuff. That I agree with Shelley. It would be interesting if they made that better. I mean, really for all iPhones, not just this. And then when you unlock it, it's an iPhone. I think there are going to be some interesting challenges there because it is a smaller screen than we've had in an iPhone in a while. And I remember from my time using the iPhone mini that there were apps that are their things just got off the bottom of the screen because they didn't even think about testing it with it. And that's going to be a challenge for developers and for Apple to be like, this thing better be a good iPhone when it's an iPhone. But I think they're leaning into it'll be a fine iPhone, but the reason you buy it is because you can open it up. And I think Shelley's resistance there is one of the examples of a challenge Apple will have with a product like this. It'll be expensive and you'll be like, yeah, but it also needs to be my phone, right? It does.
Right, and it can be mainly the iPad. If that's the way they sell it and if that's what people want to buy, you're still selling me the thing that I use as my phone, that I carry around all the time. So I need to get enough value with it in both positions that it's going to be... And not only that, not only just straight up value. Can I use it as an iPhone? Of course I can. Can I put my widgets on there? Can I put my notifications on there? But can I get excited? Can Apple tempt me or try to tempt me as somebody who is somewhere between an iPhone Pro and, wow, I really want the new thing?
What about Mac 2026?
Well, we're looking forward to possibly a super, super cheap MacBook, and that's going to upend the entire product line. The idea of being able to buy an actual MacBook based on iPhone-style A-series processors, but still certainly power enough to do the job of anything that anybody expects a $599 laptop to do, that's going to upend things quite seriously. And I'm looking forward to see if Apple decides to really distinguish a cheaper MacBook line by introducing, let's actually have, we're going to go with not necessarily all aluminum. We're going to cheap out, but we're going to do just like the iPhone 5C it was. We're going to be proudly plastic. We're going to make these in exciting, interesting colors because we don't have to worry about a whole bunch of other considerations. It has to be the same quality that people are expecting from anything that's a MacBook. But the idea of saying that we're no longer going to trust that people are willing to add an extra $71 to the unit cost of something because we really, really thought about the chamfer angles of how these two seams meet. I'd like to see them try to do this at cost. Because I'm glad to see a continuation of a reversal of Apple's policies from seemed like 7 or 8, 9 years ago, where their motto was "Go be poor someplace else." They really didn't care about serving anybody who didn't have money for a premium expense product. It's nice to see them enter this price point, but also it's interesting to see how their design department answers that specific call. Design is never easy, but when you say, oh, by the way, this is going to be a $2,000, $2,500 folding phone, we don't really have to economize everywhere, so we can have the deluxe this and deluxe that, the deluxe that. It's really, really fun when you're a company like Motorola that says, no, we can't sell this phone for more than this specific phone for more than $300, but it still has to look good, it still has to feel good in the hand, it still has to perform, and it still has to feel like a quality product. I'm really excited to see Apple's design team attack a set of problems that they've never really attacked before, because it'll teach us a lot about what they feel.
Yeah, I was going to say that it'll be the lowest cost Apple laptop ever. I think that's almost certainly going to be the case because we've never really had something down in that price range. Even at $699, you'll be the lowest list price brand new Apple laptop ever. If it happens, I think that opens up the door, and they'll do discounts on top of that, and then the education price will be $100 down from that. And I think that it could be a really good thing. I don't expect it to be plastic. I expect it to look like kind of like an M1 MacBook Air. I think that they don't want to make more plastic computers, and I think that they're good at aluminum. So I think it'll still have that Apple aluminum kind of thing that they've been doing for 15 years. But potential, and it's exciting to see them try it. And that it is because Apple Silicon enables a computer that, for multitasking and graphics, it's going to be kind of at M1 level, which is fine. And then the single core, which handles a lot of things, will be, those iPhone cores are still really fast at single core, much faster than the M1. So there's a lot of potential there. And I think that's the most. There may be a new gen MacBook Pro at the end of the year, or that may roll into next year, but that would be interesting because that's the one that's rumored to have a touch screen, and so we might also get our first Mac that actually has a touch screen, bringing the power of the early 2010s to you in 2026. But that one's a little more hazy.
At CES this week, LG announced a new material called aluminum.
How do the English pronounce the UK?
This is a marketing triumph. They're introducing a new thing that nobody can pronounce, even when they're looking at the word in front of them.
It's light. It's supposed to be kind of like aluminum. I don't really know what it is.
An alloy of some sort. That's got a little aluminum in there.
But I guess my point is that it doesn't have to be aluminum. They've used metal in the past for the gram. But as somebody pointed out, it's kind of like car metal. It's like you feel like you could dent it easily. What Apple's done with aluminum is remarkable, and I think they really own that technology.
Yeah, they are like,
it's
honestly,
pricey though, isn't
the world's leading aluminum. Well, it's not that pricey. I mean, it's in your soda can. And they've gotten really good at it. They do 3D printed aluminum now, as well as their kind of like carved out aluminum and
transparent aluminum.
And they're using it for all of their transparent aluminum's coming after they get to Scotty. And reference acknowledged. And they're just so good at it, and they're so comfortable with it. And all their production lines for all their laptops for the last however long, 15 years, have been aluminum based. So I think that they're very confident.
So even with an $800 or $600 laptop, you think they'll still use?
I don't think the aluminum
material
is the cost. I think a lot of laptops are plastic, not because plastic is cheap, but because plastic is light. But aluminum is also light, and Apple's good at aluminum, and it's a part of the brand now. I'm not sure Apple could ship a plastic laptop now, because all Apple laptops have looked like this for so long. And also then you can anodize it into a fun color or something like that. I think it'll be. But to Andy's point, it will be a big deal. Having an Apple product play at that price, and they won't have custom configs, right? If you want anything more, they'll say buy a MacBook Air. But still, if you are able to go online or to Walmart or to Costco or wherever and get a Mac laptop brand new out of box for, I don't know what, $500, $550 on sale or whatever, that's a big deal, because there are a lot of people who just will not buy a laptop that costs $999. They just won't.
And the other problem with aluminum, with plastic, is that it's an insulator, whereas aluminum acts as a big heat
and bad
sink.
for the planet.
Well, if all the things that Apple is doing that's bad for people were to be enumerated, we'd need to have a separate podcast.
Well, yeah, but aluminum, for Apple to talk about the environment and then say, well, we are switching from aluminum, which is recyclable, to plastic, which is forever, I'm not sure they could get away with it.
I would just like, I still remember like how kind of semi-exciting it was to see new iMacs and see, it's not just different colors, but now they're doing sort of like a blueberry sort of flowery swirl. I would like to, I agree for all the reasons that we've been talking about, that plastic is not terribly likely, but I would love to see Apple really, really freestyle on this. So if we also saw how well they can do colors in the most recent revamp of the iMac. I just hope that they don't say, and here's the $599 Volkswagen version of the MacBook. You can have it in gray, a slightly darker gray, or a slightly lighter gray.
The rumors are that it's going to have fun colors, which I would I would also like on other computers, please, but that it would be nice if they had fun colors. That would be great.
Are we going to, I wonder though, if we are rapidly approaching an era where people who use computers, laptops or desktops, are a different breed than the general user, that most users will be using an iPad-like device or a phone-like device.
I don't think so. I mean,
you don't think so? You think that there's a market? There will always be a market for laptops?
There's a reason why school systems cannot buy computers for education that don't have some sort of a trackpad or some sort of a keyboard. There are so many. We're not at the point yet where it's as convenient to do long form writing, long form you need a big screen for a lot of things, and multi-touch does not serve for a whole bunch of things that involve taking ideas from your head and putting it in there, putting it inside RAM. It's not as though speech to text isn't a thing, and it's not a very good thing, but the interfaces have not caught up yet. Anything that is a tablet, for instance, even a large tablet that doesn't have a keyboard attached, it's still being built with a mobile first sort of idea of how apps work. And there's a reason why this technology has been out for 10 years, and still the absolute king of the jungle is still some sort of a keyboard, some sort of a screen, some sort of a pointing device. So barring a huge revolution, I don't see that changing.
My kids
and being all in one piece is a big advantage for kids, for durability. I would argue that from accessibility point of view, the tablet is actually the better choice because those interfaces tend to be better, at least in the Apple universe. But that's not an argument we need to get into. But it does feel like the laptop and for the education market and for the low end market where this is going to sound weird to say since the iPhone is Apple's leading product at this point, but I also think if you have those low-end Macs, you're going to have people having reason to continue to be in the Apple ecosystem in other ways. So some family or some school system that may have gone on to Chromebooks or to PCs or something like that, if they have Apple laptops at the center of what they're doing, there's more and more argument for other Apple stuff. And again, that argument might sound like about 20 years old, but Apple always wants to sell more stuff.
Yeah, I would say that my kids are both in their 20s, and they use laptops. I would say my daughter especially, she's not laptop forward, laptop first, right? Like her phone is her identity and where she does most everything. She's on her phone. She uses the laptop to get work done. She does some video stuff there. Like there's having a bigger screen and a more a precise pointing device is useful in certain circumstances. And my son, prefers to play games on a laptop. So does his papers for school on a laptop and all of that. So I feel like you're right, Leo, in the sense that laptops and computers in general are not what they used to be, which was like primary. They're not. But I think they're still not like going to be esoteric. They are going to be more constrained. I think that is safe to say, that not as many people are going to need them to be their primary way that they do. Like I use my iPad a lot, but I'm mostly at my desk using a Mac, right? And I am not, I think, representative of what will be to come.
We're old school is what I guess
exactly
what I'm saying.
that being on your phone or a tablet is going to be your primary, and maybe it's like, well, I need to do this. I have a computer to do this stuff. And I think that's okay. I mean, for Apple strategically, that's why they're doing all of those things, is they're like, whatever, take whatever.
Yeah,
we make it.
Yeah.
This is honestly, things are in such wonderful state of flux right now that so many companies, including Apple, have to play the roulette table of saying, we're going to put as many chips as we can on as many things as we can, because we don't know what's going to hit, and we have to at least be ready for whatever that next thing is going to be. It's like Apple's not like Samsung. They can't afford to simply manufacture everything and just cancel the things that don't sell. But nonetheless, they know that if they don't have AI, an AI play ready to go where they don't have to spin it up from zero, that's going to be bad in 5 years. That if they don't have budget hardware, given their track record of how much success they've had in selling MacBook Airs through Walmart and other less expensive channels, if they don't have a folding phone, if they don't have X, Y, and Z, again, they can't manufacture everything, but they need to be ready for everything. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a sign of the times right now.
Let's take a break. When we come back, we will talk about Louis Mantia's farewell, shall we say, to Alan Dye. The blog post titled, "And Stay Out." You're watching MacBreak Weekly.
The holiday season when people think about charity and brotherhood and sisterhood.
Yeah. And don't let the door hit you on the way out.
Still only for lunch from me.
Andy Anako is here, the author of Cyberspeak, the fabulous dictionary of cyber talk.
Available where some old used books are sold.
Yes. Thank you.
Jason Snell, editor-in-chief of sixcolors.com, founder as well. And from the Texas Standard Radio Show, the wonderful Shelley Brisbane. It's great to have all three of you. Our show today brought to you by Material. Oh, I'm thrilled to welcome a new sponsor to the show. This is the cloud workspace security platform. Built for lean security teams. This is for security teams. Managing security in the cloud workspace. If you're doing this, I don't have to tell you, it's hard. Phishing is far from the only way in. We see these stories on Security Now every single week. But today's email security stops at the perimeter, right? Oh, we're going to block those emails. They can't get in. But that means new attacks are hard to detect because you've got siloed email, siloed data, and identity security tools. Material crosses through the barriers. It protects the email. It protects the files. It protects all the accounts that live in Google Workspace or Microsoft 365. Because effective email security today needs to do more than just block phishing and other inbound attacks. It needs to provide visibility and defense across the workspace threat surface. This is the first detection and response platform built for the cloud workspace. And now we all work in the cloud, right? Isn't this how we're all working? Material ingests your settings. It ingests your contents. It logs everything to provide holistic visibility. This is what you need and want, I know, into threats and risk across the workspace. And you get the tools to automatically remediate them. No more working in the dark. Material delivers comprehensive workspace security by correlating signals and driving automated remediations across the environment. Yes, of course, you get phishing protection and email security, combining the advanced AI detections, the best threat research in the business, and user report automation so that we're all helping each other. You get detection and protection of sensitive data across inboxes and shared files. You don't want people sending out private stuff, do you? Account threat detection and response with comprehensive control over access and authentication of people and third-party apps. Material does it all. They empower organizations to rapidly mature their ability to detect and stop breaches with step-up authentication for sensitive content, with blast radius visualization for accounts. You got to try that. When you see it, you'll understand. You'll say, how did I live without it? And the ability to detect and respond to threats and risk across the entire cloud workspace. Material enables organizations to scale their security without scaling their team. Material drives operational efficiency with its simple API-based implementation and flexible automated and one-click remediations for email, file, and account issues, including an AI agent that automates user report triaging and response. Material protects the entire workspace for the cost of email security with a simple and transparent pricing model. I want you to check it out. Secure your inbox and your entire cloud workspace without adding more toil to your day or costs to your balance sheet. See material.security to learn more or to book a demo. Material.security. It's, as they say, trusted by the best and brightest companies. Should be trusted by yours as well. Material.security. We thank them for their support of MacBreak Weekly and welcome them to the Twit family. Thank you, Material. Apple may have left, Allentine may have left for a more lucrative offer for Meta, writes Louis Mantegna. But this is absolutely a good thing for Apple, which also benefited from, quote, losing Johnny Ive. And stay out. Okay, so you wrote a little bit about this, Jason. What was Louis on about?
So Louis, who used to work at Apple and has opinions, and it's great.
That's good.
And he wrote a good post, and then Garrett Murray wrote a really good, thoughtful post about it, and then I wrote a post about a post. So,
it's posts all the way down.
It's posts all the way down. What I got out of this, so Louis goes into details about how he thinks Apple kind of disconnected, and then Garrett Murray said something that really struck me, which was what we lost along the way as Apple chased ultra simplicity and luxury. Johnny Ive spent a decade removing any trace of personality from any product Apple released, from the translucent colored plastic aesthetic of the Bondi Blue iMac to the unique design of the G4 to a bunch of aluminum rounded rectangles that were featureless and colorless. And I think there's some truth here, and I'm one of these people who I guess I would put myself as believing that Johnny Ive is a very talented designer who was channeled by Steve Jobs. And then when Steve Jobs left, he was unchanneled. I think for some strategic reasons, they're like trying to show that they still had it, even though Steve was gone. So they elevated Johnny. But I think what these posts get to also is the idea that I get the vibe from a lot of these people and a lot of Apple's designs that they got so far down the direction of luxury goods and minimalism, and that a lot of these people are working, they're rich, they've made a lot of money at Apple, they buy nice things, they appreciate nice things. Alan Dye is into high fashion, and it's not that there's fundamentally something wrong with that, but I would say that you could argue that these consumer products that have a design and luxury flair, Apple, you could argue, is affordable luxury, right? And yet, it does feel a little like disconnected from fun and more like, well, here in the high-end luxury market, everything is about paring it down to the bare minimum. And
if you've ever watched, those runway design shows, or if you ever seen videos of Paris Fashion Week or New York Fashion Week, and you look at those, you go, I don't know what world those people are living in. Yeah. They seem to have an aesthetic sense and a worldview that they seem to share, and they get it. And you'll see on Rent the Runway or whatever it's called, you'll see them go, oh, I didn't like the cut of that, and everybody says, yes, it's obvious. And I'm looking, the whole thing looks like crap. Who would wear that? That's the problem with design. It's the problem with art in general, which is it is fashion. It's driven by fashion.
It can be.
And I think what's really critical, and I think in the early days of Apple, form followed function, right? You start with function, and then you apply a form that is logically consistent with the function. I don't know if Apple's hewed to that. In fact, we'll get to this whole icons in the menu thing, which is a complete violation of Apple's original user interface guidelines. I loved. I bought the Macintosh interface guidelines.
Talk about Steve, right? Steve Jobs, the guy who's a billionaire, and he wore blue jeans and he wore a turtleneck that he got 1,000 of, and it was a high fashion turtleneck. But like, he was a minimalist guy to a certain point, but he also had taste, and I don't think he was in that super. Like, he cared about nice stuff, right? But I feel like he also was grounded in a way that maybe some of the other people who are making decisions at Apple weren't. And I think Johnny Ive is one of the reasons I roll my eyes when people talk about how great Johnny Ive and the design team was, is because I think if you listen to his pronouncements over the course of the decade of the 2010s, it was increasingly kind of ludicrous, where he was talking about these incredibly highfalutin ideas that led to making a laptop that was less useful or had no personality and drained all the color out of all the products and all of that.
Function following form instead of form following
and driving toward a goal that was not a goal of usability or of whimsy, but of sleek minimalism, because that was sort of like what they had decided to focus on. And I think both of these pieces get at it, and it rung true for me that in some ways I feel like that idealized Johnny Ive video where he's floating in a completely featureless white void is actually a pretty good representative of, like, that was the ideal for a lot of the people who were driving design at Apple. And I think, and there are lots of books out there written by people like Trip Bickle at the New York Times about that, where he clearly has sources in the design group who say, like, when Apple stops listening to the designers is when Apple loses its soul, which is pretty rich, but that's of course what a designer would say.
That's what designers think. They don't just say it. They deeply believe it. Yeah. But I think Apple's soul actually goes back to a guy named Jeff Raskin, who was the first to conceive of this idea of a computer for real people.
Yeah. And usability as an issue. And I think Jobs understood that innately, in a way, and I don't want to be what if Steve Jobs were still here, but I will say that Jobs was a really great BS detector for Johnny Ive and the design team. And then when he died, Apple was like, oh God, we got to put everything in Johnny Ive because otherwise people won't believe that we have talent here at Apple. So let's just load down Johnny Ive. And so ultimately my piece ends with a line that I'm a little bit proud of, which is I feel like Apple's design team disappeared up its own white void. And so when I read what Louis, who worked at Apple, and what Garrett Murray wrote about, it rings true to me that I think Johnny Ive and his kind of collective of people, including Alan Dye, because Johnny was put in charge of software design, kind of had this insular view of product design, and that Apple allowed them to kind of have carte blanche for a long time. Carte blanche is a perfect thing to have in a white room, by the way. It's a white card in a white room. Anyway, now it's an opportunity for change. I think it's really good for Apple. to have that change. And I think it's about Alan Dye and about eventually having new executives and being able to say, let's do a reset here, because Apple is not in the position of, I would say, desperation that they were in when Steve Jobs died, where they needed to prove that like there were still people at Apple who could do things, because Steve wanted you to believe it was all him, right? So like, oh, Sir Johnny Ive is here. It's going to be okay. And I think now the balance has shifted. And if John Turnus ends up being the new CEO, we're talking about a hardware guy. And Alan Dye is out. Like, I think this is healthy. And I think that these two pieces point at why, in addition to that amazing piece we're going to get to, which is about the icons and menus in Tahoe, I think this is all of a kind.
Yeah, I think the big problem for years was that Apple's design team collectively seemed to stop being about design and was committed to dogma. That here is our house style, or here is what the rules of design are. Like, no, those aren't rules of design. These are just the choices that made sense in this context at this time. And 5 years later, maybe it's okay to have a user interface element that floats over everything else on the screen, because if you're in an email app, maybe you open the email app to create an email, and maybe you just want to find a big fat round plus button that lets you create an email really, really quickly. Yeah, maybe I don't want to have to long press on a blank part of the screen to bring up a contextual whatever. I don't care how clean this is as a static object. I've always come back to the idea of bridges and engineering, that you can build the most beautiful, gorgeous, city-defining bridge in the world, and everybody will praise it and saying this is one of the most beautiful pieces of architecture ever. But if it falls down during a windstorm, it is not a bridge. You have designed a object to be admired academically. And so I do feel as though Apple, for a long time, had its head in its white space about how no, we're not going to design something to look like this, because that's not how design works. That's why, like, I keep coming back to, I really want to see them make like the Blueberry Swirl, like $599 MacBook or something. They're just starting to get out of the miasma of it's always a gray, overcast day in the Apple aisle of the computer store. I want them to be fun again. I want them to
It'll
be exciting again.
It'll be fun when designers say, the fashion this year is color.
Yeah.
But then it won't be functional
all of that
color.
is BS, and none of that matters. What color your computer is not relevant to anything. Now, maybe this is the thing I proposed earlier, which is there is a rapidly growing schism between people who use computers as tools and people who are using phones and iPads and maybe even laptops more as a utility, an appliance. And I don't honestly care what color my computer is, and I think any focus on that is misdirected.
People cared what color their iMac was back in the day.
Oh, I know
when they
people
had colored
did, but that
iMacs,
doesn't mean it made a better computer.
And it doesn't mean it made a better computer, but they might be more excited about buying it or feel more connected to it. I'm happy to have an orange iPhone. Like,
I have
I'm
an orange
excited about
iPhone.
it.
I like the
color.
color.
If it was a terrible iPhone, I wouldn't have it, but I'm happy that I had that option, and it makes me smile when I see it. But it's not that. I mean, yeah, I think it's just got out of balance, and my pet theory is really that they just gave designers way too much power because they were afraid, because Steve was gone, and what were they going to do? And I think the existence of all these books that claim that Apple lost its soul because they stopped listening to their designers are evidence that maybe things are already kind of coming back into balance, because a bunch of those people left and fed angry information to reporters and things like that. But I think that they were just, I mean, I don't want to say it was a cult, but I would say that the cult-like following of Johnny Ive and his people, like, they believe what they believe. They believe that there shouldn't be color. They believe that there shouldn't be ports. They believe that everything should be as thin as possible, even if functionality suffered. And the problem is that when Steve Jobs was there was somebody to stand up to Sir Johnny Ive. And after a while, like, somebody has to do that. I work with designers. I was editor-in-chief of a magazine, and we had art directors, and we used illustrators and all of that. And the fact was, it was a give-and-take relationship between somebody who was thinking about the bigger product and somebody who was thinking about the design, and you work together and you make something great. And it felt like there was a period in there where they weren't working together. The designers had decided what the good design was going to be, and they were going to implement it. And that's a recipe for, if not disaster, a bunch of the lackluster things we saw from Apple Apple design in the late 2010s and into the 2020s.
Design matters, but it doesn't, to me, it's not what color the computer is. It's where the home keys are. It's where the arrow keys are.
There are a lot of variables.
It's the bezel around the frame. It's the things that
and on the
matter
software side, can you use it? Because there are can you say iOS 7 and Liquid Glass to a lesser extent, but you create a design language that has to be repaired in order to be usable, whether it's literally for the most users where you have a clear versus tinted switch you can flick, or whether you say, well, if you set these 4 accessibility settings, this great design thing we created will now go away. That's no way to do anything, and everybody who was involved with that should be fired, in my opinion. And iOS 7 was a criminal act, and that was early in the sort of design-centric focus from a software point of view. From a hardware point of view, I mean, Steve Jobs didn't like buttons, and I think he was obsessive about that. So I'm not going to say that everything was golden when Steve Jobs was there.
Right.
Was it better because the designers weren't controlling things to the degree that they were later? Certainly. But I think, Steve could be belligerent and could argue for his point of views in ways that might not necessarily have served the product all that well. The other thing I'll say is that there's a cultural thing that I've seen at Apple all through the time I've been paying attention to them, especially in the last 20 years or so, where even the way in keynotes and events where we talk about how we use these products and what these products are for is absolutely about upper middle class and above consumption. We're going from the sushi bar to Whole Foods in our electric Teslas. And 10 years ago, more people have Teslas now than they did 10 years ago, but the sushi bar and the Whole Foods is not where the people I tend to spend my day with are going on an everyday basis for lunch. And that sort of cultural disconnect leads me to believe that Apple products are not necessarily designed in as practical a way from a software point of view and a usability point of view as they could be, and it just has cultural blinders on. And I don't think it's as nearly as critical as some of the design issues we've been talking about, but it's of a piece. It's part of the same thing. And whether you want to call it limousine progressives or whatever it is, it's a very well paid people who live in a very expensive part of the country primarily who are making decisions about the products that an awful lot of people will use, and for whom the $700, $800, $1,000 that they spend on an iPhone is a considerably larger part of their budget than it is for those people who are making the stuff at Apple.
Yeah, I also say that colors become irrelevant when you've commoditized everything else. When everything else is done, then, let's say an automobile, there's a kind of a real standard automobile, and now the way you distinguish your model from another model is by fins, by color, by the headlights, by less relevant things. I don't know if we're at that point with computers. We might be at that point with phones, where color is all that really matters. That one glass black slab is pretty much like any other.
It's all, the thing is, it's all of a piece. Color is one thing because it helps to communicate the relationship with an object. We have emotional, intellectual reactions to color, so it's not like it's nothing. But it's not like it's interesting to compare. Apple cannot afford to be extremely diverse with their design choices because they are the sole manufacturer of phones that run iPhone OS or run iOS. Whereas on the Android side, you can have a company like Nothing that said, you know what, we are going to go crazy. We're going to be putting illuminated bars on the back of it.
Isn't it that better, though, Andy, to have an ecosystem where you have that kind of choice?
I think it's better to give people the opportunity to buy the hardware that they respond to, either on an intellectual level or an emotional level. Shelley is absolutely correct that we can't forget that these are expensive devices, okay? And I replaced my 5-year-old phone with a 4.5 or 3-year-old phone because, if I have a working version of this, I don't want to spend $1,000 on a device if I have a perfectly working, perfectly good version of it at my elbow. So I have to consider that very, very thoughtfully. And at that basis, having to spend $1,000 on a top-tier phone and say, I really hate that they don't have a good camera on this. Oh, well, I got to stick with it. Or, gee, actually, I've seen a Huawei phone that has, isn't it nice to have like a small OLED screen on the back of it? Because I could see 100 ways in which that would make this phone better for me. Oh, well, I can't do that. That's something that Apple will never be able to get around because, again, they have to manufacture each and every one of these iPhones. But I also feel as though they're stepping up at the plate, and they're not swinging at anything that is not clearly a home run pitch. And that kind of thing is kind of a super bummer to me, because Apple has the ability to do that sort of stuff, but they're just simply saying they're just standing in the batter's box waiting for something that they are absolutely going to love, and they're not taking any chances whatsoever. And again, I acknowledge that Apple can't do something, and I acknowledge that the Nothing phone is crazy. It's crazy in a thoughtful and a fun way. And if this were the only way to get Android, there's no way I'd still be an Android user. But I love the fact that they're at least thinking about this, and I'm hoping that some of those design ideas, like having, in addition to having like the back of the camera, not just having cameras, but maybe having its own secondary display, that is a great idea, and I hope it filters through into the mainstream.
Let me channel Alex Lindsay, the late, great Alex Lindsay here, and say that all of that doesn't matter if one phone has a better camera than the other. That all people really want is a great camera, right? And so if all the phone's cameras are identical, then you can choose a phone that looks different or
they kind of
has
are
a color that you want. Yeah, maybe they are. I don't know. That's
if you get a flagship grade phone, the difference is
then you start thinking about color.
Yeah, exactly. And it really is about difference between film stock as opposed to quality of camera.
And that's my point, you only start thinking about color when everything else is roughly equal. But if there's a phone with a better camera and it's black, but you happen to wish you had orange, most people are going to buy the better camera, right?
Again, this conversation doesn't have to be all about color. That's just one facet of things, and I think we're kind of focusing unnaturally on this one aspect. I'm kind of sorry.
No, I'm using it as an example. It could be anything else. It could be.
But again, the idea of I really wish that again that I'm going to go back to a rear back of the phone. I still don't know how to describe the sides of a phone in ways that it will absolutely be the back of the phone where all the cameras are. The idea of having some sort of a display or some sort of a screen on the back of that I think is a great idea. Every time I've seen it on a phone,
thing.
I can even if it's just about selfies, but also I'm going to have this thing face down on my table because I don't want it to be distracted. But however, if there's an important notification, I'm okay with having an Apple Watch style little display that simply says, oh, by the way, yeah, you didn't turn your notifications off, so clearly you want to be aware of what's going on in the world. Here's the reason why I trilled just a second ago. That is such a great idea. And again, the idea of, I think that it was an absolute non-starter from the Apple design department because, well, we're putting an extra thing on there. We don't want to put extra things on there. And this is, of course, the same design studio that said, how about we have a MacBook that has keys that are absolutely so flat as to be unusable. And even lastly, my God, Shelley, you hit it on the head. Like the design choices that really make me upset are the ones where they just seem stupid. Like where they thought, like with liquid glass, like on my iPhone, they said on my iPad, thinking, you know what, we should have like instead of having a window bar and have like the stoplight buttons like inside this bar, we should have it like floating over the content area of the window because the upper left-hand corner is a great place to put user interface elements. Like, okay, design team, you know who else thinks that? Every designer of every app ever that shipped anything for the iPad. And so the number of apps that I have on my iPad, even this long after this new design language has come up, where it's hard to use because every time I try to hit a back button or hear an action button that's in the top left corner of the interface, instead it exposes the stoplight buttons that belong to iPad OS. It just makes me think that, yes, this was a nice idea, but you didn't form a solution to the problem of what if that collides with the interface design of an existing app? And why did you ship it if you did not have a solution to this that didn't involve, well, people are just going to have to get used to it, and it's just going to stink for the 8, 9, 10, or 11 months until every single app developer changes and rethinks their interfaces to move things out of the top left corner. That was just such a stupid idea.
We were going to talk about Nikki Tonsky's article. We'll do that in just a second. You noticed I channeled Alex Lindsay. That's because, again, for those who are just tuning in, Alex has taken a job at the fruit company, which good for him. but it means he's no longer allowed to do podcasts. So we have temporarily replaced Alex with the wonderful Shelley Brisbane from Texas Standard Radio. We're probably going to do for the next few weeks it's not tryouts. We're just going to rotate in some of the great people that we love to see on the show. There's a lot of them. Ultimately, I do want to find a full-time fill-in, and I have somebody in mind. I've asked that person. We're waiting to hear back. So that is all in progress.
Unfortunately, he's still on tour with Martin Short, but hopefully...
It's actually, I'll be honest, it's. I keep saying you got to retire from your job so that you can enter the fascinating world of podcasting. But he seems to really like his job, and even though he's 65 and ready to move on,
he's being shown the door.
I'm sorry, did I say Tim? I didn't.
Oh.
I've been trying.
Tim last name withheld.
And I keep hoping you're going to get some female representation on the show, Leo.
I agree with you. In fact, that is the person I've asked is a female. So
hooray!
I think it absolutely needs to be.
And I'm sure also a super smart human as well.
Leo has binders full of... Oh, never mind.
Actually, it is one of the great challenges of our shows over the last 20 years is not to fill it up with old white men.
With dudes. Yeah, I spent a long time trying to cultivate more women on podcasts, especially tech podcasts. And
you do a great job.
A lot of them got hired by Apple and can't do podcasts anymore.
That's the problem.
There are only a few of us left struggling to stay above water or wait for the job offers to
Stay independent, Shelley. Stay independent.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, no chance of... I like to talk too much. You'd never be able to speak to me again.
Fair.
I couldn't podcast. I've got all these microphones I've paid money for. I can't get
We love having you on. You're fantastic.
Thank you.
It's
That's
nice
great
to have
to be
Shelley
here.
Brisbane from the Texas Standard Radio Show on MacBreak Weekly. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. So the article, it turns out this resonated with a number of people. Nikki Tonsky starts with information from this is what I was talking about earlier, the Macintosh Human Interface Guidelines, which I found very inspiring. And they really did come from Jeff Raskin, who was the guy who initially created the Macintosh project. Steve Jobs took over and got rid of Raskin. But in 1992, they published and actually I think that they published these earlier in 84 when the Mac came out. Very, I think, astute guidelines as to what a user interface should be. No modal dialogues, I mean, there was a bunch of stuff. And one of the things is don't use, and this is what Nicky's put in his blog, don't use arbitrary graphic elements. Now, before I go much farther, I do have to point out, if you look at the top of Tonsky.me, that he has used some very obscure icons, including a hamburger menu that actually looks like a hamburger, but when you click it, you only get a short little menu. This looks like it's going to be, night or day. Well, yeah, kind of, sort of is. It's not dark mode. Turns out the lights. And then there's a snowflake that just turns things yellow. So I have to say right up front, Nikki, you've got, and as anybody who is a Clojure programmer, I guess this is the case. You've got some unique style issues of your own.
Can I also say, like, before, because I love this article and we're going to praise him, and this article is very, very insightful. I thought it was super, super funny that at least until like yesterday, this article about things shouldn't be cluttered or make it hard to read the user interface had like animated snowfall all behind the block text.
Exactly. But
whimsy is good.
He's whimsical. And you know what? He's not designing an operating system for hundreds of millions of people to use. So his point, and I think it's a well-made point, is if for some reason in macOS Tahoe, they've added icons to every single menu item. Does that help in the clarity and the understanding? Does it make more sense? I think not. I think it's a design element. And he says it's unpleasant, distracting, illegible, messy, cluttered, confusing, and frustrating.
Yeah.
You agree?
Mm-hmm.
And why did they do this? Why?
I want to hear Shelley talk about this first, because I was trying to think about, well, what would the argument in favor of this inside Apple be? And every time I hear about someone, a designer explains stuff like this, it's because it's about making the interface more understandable by people who, for either reasons of language or reasons of cognition, need an image as opposed to text, and that will help them see it better. Although, I was struggling to explain why, again, it does look cluttered and kind of silly, but I kind of hope that there's a reason for this.
He's not against icons, by the way. He points out judicious use of icons in menus makes sense because it highlights the thing that you're looking for. The problem is if you put it on here's an example. If you put it on every element, it's just clutter. If you put it on like the share icon, the save menu item, and the print menu item, it helps you find those things that you're looking for. Shelley, what do you think?
Well, I think it was one of those interesting situations where if you wanted to talk about it from pure accessibility point of view, you could talk about the cognition side, the image as opposed to text side, or you could talk about how on the other side, somebody who is a text-focused person because of a visual impairment or for whatever reason might find those icons troublesome and difficult. I think, first of all, it has to be absolutely clear what the icon means. It's like emojis. Like you have 100 different emojis, but if you can't tell what they are, what they're supposed to mean, and I ask all the time, what is emoji of this color, or with what does this heart mean versus that heart mean?
Right. Well,
so
here's
the same
Tonsky
thing
uses
is true.
As an example. Here are 13 different ways of saying new that Apple has used. It's as if it's very strange. It doesn't.
Yeah, and I think too, if you're going to give that, the unfortunately, accessibility or usability is oftentimes used as a way to make your own point. So if you have a perspective, whether it's that you like icons or that you like white surfaces or whatever it is that you like, you're going to say, well, that improves usability. For whom, I ask.
Good point. Yeah.
I think you can make that a feature that you could turn on. If you want to make that available in accessibility as an alternative option, if that's really what you're going for, go ahead and do that. And you can call that cognitive assist or whatever you want to call it. But if that is just your smokescreen for, I want to make these icons because from my perspective, they have some design value, well, don't get accessibility and usability involved because we're not part of your fight.
Yeah, you know what? Okay, I hate to say this, and this may not be true, but I'm just going to theorize. Apple spent a lot of money and time building these really nice icons called SF symbols. And I feel like maybe at some point somebody said, hey, why don't we put an SF symbol on every menu item? Wouldn't that be fun? We've got a whole library of symbols. Let's do it.
It's fun. It's whimsical.
Now, as the blog post points out, one of the killers here is that they don't use the same icon to represent the same thing everywhere.
Even within the same app.
Yeah. One of the ways that you could really say, well, so not everybody wants to read text. Maybe there's a cognitive issue there. You have a recognizable symbol. It always means this thing. So you know it when you see it. It leaps out at your brain. And so you can click at it. Great. But they don't do that. They're not consistent with it at all. And so, yeah, it feels to me like, and you know, I would also say, you could make this an option, right? You could have it be show these or don't show these. I remember there used to be utilities that did that sort of thing in classic Mac OS where they could put them in there or make them go away. I agree also that it becomes very samey if every item has an icon. Then nothing stands out, which is a problem. But if you're going to do it, you want to be consistent. This is not. I love this. I'm glad that this is pointed out. I love how detailed he is with his with the evidence
it's
of
a good
inconsistency.
Takedown, I have to say.
It's really solid because it makes you ask, what's the process that went on here? Why does somebody think this was a good idea? That's why I keep thinking that it goes back to we have SF symbols. Let's put SF symbols everywhere, which is a mistaken choice to make. I would love to hear why they did this. But I'll point out, this reminds me of the thing I wrote a couple years ago, because if you want inconsistency with icons, also go to the System Settings app on the Mac, because in that sidebar there is a series of items with icons in groups in the sidebar. The groups aren't labeled. The groups aren't consistent. You can't figure out why those groups are grouped the way they are. The icons are not grouped by color. Some of the icons, like the top level, there's 3 blue icons and a green icon. What do the colors mean? Nobody knows. And it goes that way throughout.
Searching doesn't help.
There's no structure. I back in the day, I taught a grad school course at the journalism school at UC Berkeley. It was kind of about the web, and building web pages, but it was primarily about information design. We spent a lot of time talking about information design. It's really important. One of the things you do, whether you're a writer or an editor or whatever, or an interface designer, is how do I structure content? How do I structure? I've got a whole big bag of stuff. How do I label it? How do I get people to, in various different ways that people's brains work, to recognize that this is a thing that's important? And one of the really dispiriting things about this menu thing in Tahoe, and you might say, what's the big deal? I mean, the answer is more that it's a distressing lack of focus on, on information design. Of like, you could have made this more scannable. In fact, judiciously used, and perhaps even with the addition of color on top of it, you could make something that was more scannable for more people, but they didn't. And the system settings is the greatest example of that, where like, you have to search. Like, I don't even know why they have those items on the sidebar of system settings, because you basically have to search to find anything. You also can't, I mean, what if you pinned something? What if it showed you places you've been recently? But they've made no effort to do any of that. And like I said, even the color that they use is entirely inconsistent. The groupings, color is a way you can send a signal. Groupings are a way you can send a signal. And yet that's an app that shipped that has no care put into it. So these menus are just of a kind. It shows that there's nobody there saying, why are we doing this? What is the user benefit? And that is very troubling.
Jim Nielsen, who wrote a similar post, points out that Google's done the same thing in Google Sheets, for instance. They have an icon on every menu choice. If you're on Mac OS right now and you want to see an example of this, the best example is the Photos app, which literally has an icon on every single menu item. The Finder less so, but if you drop down the Apple menu, you'll see an icon on every menu item, and you'll see these inconsistencies too. And it doesn't help with clarity. Somebody on the Twitch chat is saying maybe they're preparing for a touch screen. Maybe
I was gonna say exactly.
Go ahead,
that.
Andy.
There are a couple of cues here, mostly because another thing that you notice, particularly because he does such a good job of just screenshotting everything. You notice that in the new Mac OS, when you tap a menu, the menu item is not connected to the menu bar in any way, shape, or form. It highlights the menu bar, the menu item with a pill, but the menu contents is in its own rounded rectangle. That suggests to me that they are moving towards a world in which maybe these menu items are not necessarily going to be attached to anything. Not necessarily. Maybe the Mac will stay the same. Maybe the behavior will also be the same in an iPad. But there is a future device coming in which it will be quite relevant to allow the user to simply activate a menu that is not necessarily attached to the top of a screen, because there is not necessarily a fixed screen of fixed dimensions. And that would invite us to wonder, like, maybe that's one of the reasons why they want to put mini icons and populate them in the menu bar, because they don't know if people are going to have the same level of focus and attention upon a fixed point for menu items as they were before. This is all speculation, but again, it's as if you look at it, if I look at it as a simple design choice, I don't know why you would want to disconnect a menu from a menu bar item. The menu bar itself is now not necessarily operationally it exists as a separate reserved part of the screen, but now it has no background and it shows the desktop behind it. Again, to make it a little bit blurry as to, am I looking at part of my device display, or am I looking at something that belongs to the system and is not necessarily something that I can interact with directly? So it does suggest to me that maybe they're trying to build one of the goals of this new design language was to make it easier to build a version of Mac OS, a version of iPad OS, a version of iOS that will be compatible with a device yet to be shipped, visually and operationally.
Okay. I mean, all we can do is complain. We don't get a choice, so.
And we will.
and we're mighty happy to have something to complain about. We
don't like a step back. That's the problem.
Yeah.
This looks like a step with so many things with liquid glass. It feels like a step back, and we don't like those things.
I'm gonna continue to build on this growing theory that the farther we got away from Jeff Raskin, the worse things got. We were lucky because Steve and Jeff had worked together. Steve basically stole many of Jeff's ideas. By the way, Jeff came up with an operating system. He died 20 years ago. I can't believe it's been 20 years. He died 20 years ago. But towards the end of his life, he came up with a new a metaphor for an operating system that was absolutely inscrutable. So I'm not saying he's the king of intelligibility, but he had this vision for a computer that everybody could use.
I want to say you don't need to be a visionary. What you need to do is you need to have a process and a structure where people who have a say in the decision making are worried about usability, worried about the user. They're worried about, will this be functional? What is the user benefit? And when we talk about this design, I feel like one of the places where it got untethered a little bit at Apple was that design decisions were being made more because of how it looked, and we've got all these symbols that we invested all this money in or whatever it is, and not like we need a strong case for this benefiting the user by somebody who does have the skill to say this doesn't. Like, well, why wouldn't it? Putting all these icons that benefits the user. You need somebody in the room who can say, how does it benefit the user?
Well, you also need a dictator, because the inconsistency is also part of the problem. If you're going to do it, at least make it consistent.
Sure. And so what you want is somebody at the table who's got some clout, who can say, I don't like this. And maybe they're not a dictator, maybe they can't like make it stop. But what you want is to foster a culture where everybody who's coming up with this is checking in with the usability people and saying, what do you think about this? Let's have a conversation. What would make these menus more usable? What would make this setting more usable and accessible, which I would argue they care more about accessibility than usability, because they do actually seem to care about accessibility. But
sometimes fits
then usability. I mean, I'm really not just throwing usability under the bus there, Shelley.
I get it, but I have a point about that, because I think that accessibility, the perception is that when these things are being developed, at some point in the middle, hopefully close to the beginning, they go over to the accessibility shop and they say, hey, just want to let you know what we're doing. Here's what you have to work with in terms of making it accessible, or what can we do to make it more accessible. I don't think it happens that way. I think there's an awful lot of, once this thing is gone down the path so far that you can't really reel it back, whether it's Liquid Glass or iOS 7, my two favorite things, they say to the folks in Accessibility Lab, hey, I've got a challenge for you. Make this accessible.
Yeah, good luck.
And the folks in the Accessibility Lab go, okay, fine, we're going to do it. And we're going to meet some minimum requirements that we already have using the tools that we have, or we're going to put in a button that's going to turn it off, or at least sort of turn it off. And unfortunately, that is a similar process for any sort of usability, or anything where you have a concept and a vision, if you will, and you have to make it see reality, whether it's accessibility or whether it's just straight up usability. If you go so far down the path that you cannot come back if my answer to you is no, this doesn't work, then what's the point of having that sort of consultation in the first place?
You're too far down in the funnel. And that goes back to who's in the room. Like you need to have a culture where accessibility and usability are part of the conversation and the conception. Now, what I'm not saying is that designers shouldn't have ideas because somebody's going to come in and say, no, I don't want you to design a nice shoe. I want you to design an orthopedic shoe. Every shoe we design must be orthopedic. Like, I'm not saying that. It's a conversation, and they're going to make decisions that maybe look nice and are a little less usable. But everybody in the room should have that thought of like, the goal here is for it to be usable and accessible and to look good and to be a thing people delight in. Like, all of those things should be goals, and there should be a whole culture of conversation about that. And we all get the gut feeling based on evidence that that's not happening.
There are silos, or there are org charts that are
they're not being listened to because there's no culture.
And see, that's the thing. Like, once you create that kind of culture, then if I, as a designer, go in and design something that seems fanciful, but that I have a vision for what it's going to be about, and I come to the usability and the accessibility teams early enough, and I say, look, here's this thing I have. Here's what I want to do. What do you think? If you as the usability, who am I? Who are you? If you as the person on the accessibility or the usability team feel that you actually have input that will be taken, you're not going to get your hackles up when you first hear about Liquid Glass. Your first reaction is not going to be, oh God, look what they're doing to the interface again. It's going to break for accessibility. Your first reaction, if the culture is right, should be, here, let's work together and let me show you why this is a change that you might want to make make it more accessible while it still is attractive to look at.
One of the other products Apple's rumored to be coming out with this year is a new studio display. Jason, you wrote, I don't know. Don't you believe in vacations? You spent the whole holiday season writing articles for Macworld.
We pre-wrote a bunch of stuff.
Oh, okay,
right?
good.
And then you
I
get
hope you
it
took
up
some
there.
time off.
But yeah, I wanted
He
to
let
think
his
about,
contributors have time off so he could write all the time.
Oh,
that's true too.
Nice.
Displays like I just want Apple. My wish list item is I just want Apple to have a coherent strategy for its displays. The fact that we've got these old displays that Apple's still selling at full price when they've been really surpassed in terms of the technology is very frustrating. I hope that this is the year that we get a new studio display, and if they're going to replace the Pro Display XDR, they should do that too. My broader argument there is just that if Apple's going to be in a space like this, they need to keep their products up to date. And I'm very frustrated by the fact that they drop a product like a Studio Display or a Pro Display XDR, and then they just kind of walk away for 3 or 4 or 5 years. Seems kind of, it's very frustrating. I would like them to do better. I would like there to be better Apple displays. Not everybody buys an Apple display, but some people find that the Apple, getting it from Apple, is worth the extra money because, and there are reasons. And that's fine. And Apple's presence in the market leads to competition, which leads to other products that do similar things that are priced less, which is also very good for Apple users and Mac users in this case. So all of that is true. And then the other display thing is, I feel like you talk about, making a plastic laptop versus an aluminum laptop. When the 5K iMac came out, they got rid of Target Display Mode. And the Studio Display is run by an Apple Silicon chip. It's got this display in front of me right now is running iOS with an Apple Silicon chip inside, right? It would seem to me that if you're going to make a bunch of computers that are all-in-ones, the iMac, and they have processors in them that are going to age worse than the display does, and you're truly committed to the environment, you should bring back Target Display Mode. So an old iMac that has outlived its usefulness as a computer could be given a new lease on life by buying a Mac Mini and attaching it to the back. And the fact that they don't do that, and that they view the iMac as a completely disposable computer, goes right up against their environmental claims that they really want to make the world a better place and not create waste, because those iMacs don't need to be waste. And if there's an iMac Pro or another big iMac that comes out, same rule applies. That computer will age worse than the display will in almost every case. Why don't they do that? So basically, these are two kind of disparate things, but my point is the same, which is whoever is in charge of Apple's display strategy is blowing it on all fronts. So I hope they get their act together.
At least they have displays. For a long time, they didn't even make displays.
Well, yeah, it was worse. Although honestly, I've come to the point where if you're going to say you're making displays and then you don't update them for 3, 4, 5 years at a time, I'd almost rather they give up again. Because while it was dark, it was a bad time when there were no Apple displays. Are we served by having displays like the Studio Display? I have 2 of them. Look, I like the Studio Display, but it costs so much money and has been surpassed in every way by other displays now. And then that, not to mention that Pro Display XDR, which is even older and out of date and more expensive. So if you're going to be in a space like displays, be there and do it and refresh them. But as with many things that Apple does, it's more like this weird hobby thing where the footprint of a tech giant in the category distorts the category, but they don't seem to actually care.
Well, should we give up on Apple now and just say they've lost their...
No, it's a big company.
It was a good run. 50 years.
It's a big company, and they. I mean, this is why I think change is good. This is why I think executives leaving is good, because I think it gives new people the opportunity to maybe revisit things that were just allowed to kind of go off on their own for a long time, and give voice to people who've been working there who might have opinions that differ from what their bosses had. And I think that would be good. I think Apple sometimes suffers from a lack. And maybe this is part of their hiring process because they have a messed up hiring process. They don't have enough people. But for a company that size and that profitable, they should have, if they're going to enter a market, they should be empowered to be good at it, right? And I think that the displays is a great example of Apple, even leaving aside the individual products, why are we in this category? If we're Apple and we're in this category, what should Apple be doing? And nobody would argue that Apple is the Apple of displays, right? So it's like either be the Apple of displays or get out. One of them. Pick one.
Yeah. I think one of the problems that we sometimes run into is that we forget that Apple is not what it was like when we were growing up and we had this two hippies in a garage, and they were a design forward company. They're risk takers. They take chances. Like, I'm not saying this as a complaint about Apple. I'm saying that as part of their natural evolution as a $3 trillion company, that there are things that they can't do that they could do in the 1990s when they were just saying, you know what, we could be out of business next year. We may as well do some really interesting and creative things. And sometimes that gives us expectations for Apple that aren't maybe realistic. They're aspirational, and we should always have aspirational expectations, but we should not be as disappointed as some of us, myself included at times, get by Apple's, again, three different shades of gray for every single notebook. Okay, that's fine. That's something. I said before. Wouldn't it be great if they did the same thing they did with the iMac? Yeah, but again, Andy, that was 20 years ago plus, and this is not the same company. And they know their market. They know the larger market. And if they only make laptops in 3 different shades of gray, there's probably a really good reason why they're doing it that way.
The iMac does have 7 colors now, or 6 colors in gray. So they did it on the iMac. They just haven't done it on the lap.
But they haven't done it on a while.
My theory is that a lot of people are uncomfortable with a brightly colored laptop because they take it out in the world with them and they might be judged, so they'd rather it be more conservative. And they did the orange and blue iBooks that one time and then never ever again. And I think maybe that's why is that they've just decided.
They know their market. They know they've studied it, and they've made a decision based on information, not based on guesses.
Well, back to displays, though, I feel like a coherent display strategy is certainly something perfectly reasonable to ask of a $3 trillion company.
Yeah.
And I think for me, and I know I always talk about value in Apple, and it's hilarious that I do that, but I think it's ridiculous if they're going to have a display, old or new, that the only display they have is $1,000 plus, and that whether it's old iMac panels or what, there should be, if I may buy, and I'm always in clamshell mode, so I either have a Mac Mini or I have a MacBook Pro, so I care about displays a lot. I don't care about the most brightest, the most pixels. I am never going to buy a studio display because it's ridiculously expensive. However, if Apple made a $500 display or $700 display rather than a $200 display, I might be interested, because I like the idea of a display that has some Apple brains in it, that's running iOS, that allows me to do the things with a display that iOS could allow me to do, even if it's not the top of the line panel that they can get $1,000 or $1,500 for. And it seems like whether they make the decision to do that or not, that would be the kind of conversation you would have if you had a coherent display strategy. If I go in and buy a Mac Mini or even a laptop and I say I'm going to primarily use this in clamshell mode, what does Apple at the Apple Store have for me? They don't have anything for me, because I'm never going to buy a studio display.
Mm-hmm.
Anthony Nielsen in our Club Twit Discord says, and if you have a display, you better buy Better Display Pro, which allows you to do infinite different resolutions on your Mac display and so forth. He says he can't live without it. So, Anthony, thank you for the recommendation. And I know you all use it. Except maybe you, Shelley. You probably don't care.
I don't know that one.
It lets you convert your display to fully scalable screens, manage display configuration, overrides, allows brightness and color. All the things Apple doesn't give you in the display control panel system setting, you can do with this. Full dimming to black. You might care about that. It lets you have full control over the brightness of your screen. Virtual screens for your Mac. It does a lot. That's pretty impressive. All right, we're going to take a little break. You're watching MacBreak Weekly. Shelley Brisbane filling in this week. It's great to have you from Texas Standard Radio. Every day you do a show.
Every day. We did one today.
It's a morning show today. Heard all over Texas?
We're on 30 stations across Texas. We're based in Austin, Texas, but we are on just about all of your public radio stations at 10 a.m. in most markets and 9 a.m. in El Paso and other western points.
And it's not just geek stuff.
Not at all. No, we are a news show. We do arts and culture stuff. I did a Public Domain Day segment today. We have a lot of books that we review. We talk to TV people. It's arts and culture. It's news. It's all the news and other things that a Texan might want. Lots of sort of Texas cultural stuff too. Now, here's something we found out today. There's every once in a while we find out that there is some brand that is also called Texas Standard. There's a clothing brand called Texas Standard. But today I found out that there is a beer from a brewery that I like very much called Texas Standard. And this is upsetting me because I really want one, but I feel like I'm disloyal if I go have it.
So great to have you, Shelley, filling in for Alex Lindsay, who, as I mentioned, has gone to the Fruit Company in the Sky. We also have Jason Snell and Andy Anako with us, as always. What Public Domain Day is something that Duke University does every January 1st, because at the beginning of a new year, new works go into the public domain. Anything you're particularly excited about, Shelley, that went into the public domain this year?
Leo, I'm so glad you asked. So
is it the secret of the old clock? Is that it?
No, it's because 1930 was the first year that sound films really became real. So they were making sound films, partially sound films, in 1927, but by 1930, you're actually making, epics and musicals that are more than just, scratchy audio and heads that are not framed correctly. And so 1930 is the first year that you really have interesting films beginning to be made, like All Quiet on the Western Front. Garbo Talked that year, Anna Christie, and Cimarron, which was a big Western epic. So just a lot of really interesting movie making started happening in 1930.
Yeah. We got another Marx Brothers movie. We got Animal Crackers.
Animal Crackers.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So
that
means now I could play that on this show, and YouTube would probably still take me down. But
yeah, YouTube doesn't know from public domain.
Not with any. They would be illegitimate, and so then I could go to hire a lawyer and go to court. And Betty Boop, I like that.
One of my there's a site you picked it. MBWPicks.com tells me you picked it in the past. Standard eBooks, which is really nice public domain ebooks. They have a new post about all of the new stuff. They've been working behind the scenes. I love this, to drop on January 1st a whole bunch of new public domain books in all the ebook formats, and they do such a great job with it.
That's cool.
And there you get The Castle by Franz Kafka, The Maltese Falcon by Dashiell Hammett is there. There's another Faulkner. There's another Langston Hughes. The first Miss Marple novel by Agatha Christie is in there. Yes. And then the other great detective course, yes, the first 3 or 4 Nancy Drew books. Which is, it's funny because they were rewritten in the 50s.
Yeah, they really were dated.
These are the original, very dated, carbon dated versions of them. But yeah, if you want to do a Miss Marple, or you want to dig into some Faulkner, or get there with Sam Spade and the Maltese Falcon, it's all there. And Standard eBooks, if you are somebody who wants to find stuff to read, it's using Project Gutenberg as a source for a lot of the text, and then they get the ebook files to be good, so they look great.
So
whether it's in the Books app or on your Kobo or your Kindle or wherever, they look really great.
So Project Gutenberg, they have all the public domain books that somebody's typed in,
basically, or scanned, but this has been corrected.
Standard then formats it, corrects it, makes it a nice ebook.
It's really good.
The Secret of the Old Clock. Number 1 in the Nancy Drew stories. Yeah. I actually might be kind of fun to read that. I read my sister read the Nancy Drew books when we were kids, and I remember The Secret of the Old Clock, but I'm sure she read the more recent ones, The Hidden Staircase, The Bungalow Mystery.
Yeah, there's a bunch there.
Mystery at the Lilac Inn. That's wonderful. Thank you, Jason. And by the way, congratulations. You picked MacBreak Weekly Picks as your pick at the last show of the year, and he was very happy about it.
Put it in the sidebar with a little audio clip, which is very nice.
Isn't that nice?
Nice? Not in the actual picks for that episode, because that would have caused a recursive clip that would have destroyed the universe. We don't want that. So instead, I'm in the sidebar.
It would have been an illustration of a mathematical quandary. Is this a pick that belongs in the list of all the picks, or does the picks of all catalogs that do not include the picks are in self part of the abject set?
Let's just test the YouTube takedown mechanism.
Hooray for Captain Spaulding.
Right now. Sorry. This is the one with Hooray for Captain Spaulding?
Yeah, exactly.
It's pretty close to the end, I think, isn't it?
Is it? Hooray for Captain Spaulding, the African explorer.
His first appearance at the party.
John Ashley has appeared in our Zoom to berate us.
He's probably really upset. Let's just take a chance. Come on, John Ashley. We could just take a chance.
For science.
For science. We're going to see what happens. Will YouTube take us down? See, what happens is there are other channels that have now immediately put their content ID on this public domain thing.
Yeah.
Because they want to try to steal your monetization and make money on your
so
content.
it's just really it's a mess.
It's always a fun scrum every year. Like the Fleischer Studios or whatever entity that is now Fleischer Studios is insisting, no, we still own Betty Boop. You can't use Betty Boop. And meanwhile, lawyers who are like on the open source and freeware community are saying, no, legally. So the entire concept of Betty Boop, the original character.
Well, the original Betty Boop, which is not what it became later, and so that's where all the great is.
But they're saying that even just use of that original one. No, we still own that too. It's like, okay, no, we have to tell you that. No, you can't.
So there, some lawyers will get some work out of it one way or another.
Yeah.
It's so funny because the last time this happened, Jammer B's reminded me when Tom Lehrer passed, we played one of his songs, which he
put all his stuff in the public domain before he died,
and we got a strike.
Really? Oh my goodness!
Unbelievable.
That's again one of the biggest problems with YouTube is like because they are required to take these things down, they have created a system where it's automatic strike. We don't even have to follow it up. We don't even want to take a look at it. It's cheaper simply to
you can appeal it, but by then it doesn't. By the time it gets turned around, if it ever does, it doesn't matter on a show like ours.
You'll get the famous. We know how disappointing this can be. However, like you sent me this email like 8 seconds after I sent that. I don't believe that you actually considered my appeal very carefully.
The other side of it is this stuff is public domain in the United States, right? There may be other jurisdictions
under United States copyright law. Yeah,
but I think ours tends to be the worst.
Yeah, you're right. We've extended it well beyond any other country, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Be My Eyes, which AppleVis is the company that does this amazing program. And every year they do their Golden Apple Awards. And I would not presume to talk about these if Shelley Brisbane weren't here, but you are our accessibility expert. These are apps that have afforded blind, deafblind, and low vision users of Apple products an opportunity to use these products and to acknowledge the developers who make accessible applications.
So I'll unpack it a little bit. So AppleVis is a community site that's been covering Apple for 15 years. It's been around for a long time, run by volunteers completely, but they just couldn't do it anymore, and they were going to have to close down, and it really created an uproar in the community. And there's the company called Be My Eyes, which began by providing live human-to-human contact, so that if you're a blind person and you drop something, or you need to know what color something is, or you need something read to you, you could call people, and those people via your phone camera would assist you. Now they've added an AI component, so that's what Be My Eyes does. And Be My Eyes bought AppleVis a year and a half ago or so.
Oh, I didn't realize it was that recent.
Keep it alive.
Good for them.
AppleVis has had the Golden Apple Awards every year, and the way it's done now is there's a committee of people in the industry, I happen to be one of them, who is asked each year, what are your nominees for Best App, Best Game, Developer of the Year, and the David Goodwin Award, which honors the founder of AppleVis. And so those nominations are then sifted and then put onto the website so that the public, the community of AppleVis, can vote. And so all of the winners this year for Best App, Best Game, Best Developer of the Year, which is often very similar to the Best App, and the Goodwin Award have come out.
Are these all Apple? Do they have to run on the Apple platform? Can they run on any platform? They're all for the Apple platform. Okay.
Yeah, they're not exclusively. For example, like Best App, Pickybok does not run only on the Apple platform. It runs Android too, but it does have to run on iOS or Mac. Okay. Usually they're iOS things, but they can be, Mac things. And they don't differentiate that between Mac and iOS, because I think most of the interest is on the iOS side.
Is it still the case that that the iPhone is really the best accessibility platform for people with low vision?
Well, for blind folks, generally, yes. TalkBack, which is Android's voiceover equivalent, has gotten a lot better. You can absolutely and I know a lot of people who are Android users who are blind or visually impaired. As a Braille user, I think Apple still has a bit of a lead, although again, TalkBack and BrailleBack have gotten better. I think for low vision, you can argue because number one, low vision experiences vary. Some people, like me, live in dark mode, and some people have macular degeneration and need incredibly bright interfaces. And those features vary so much, not only in terms of people's vision, but in terms of like what Android's phones offer. So there's base Android and there's Samsung editions that have accessibility stuff for folks with low vision. And so what I always say is you got to look at those phones and figure out whether as a low vision person, Apple or Android is the best, because Apple, created a few issues with liquid glass. It was not as bad as I thought it would be, but it was not great.
Now, for blind users, it's an entirely different matter because it's about screen readers and so forth.
Yeah, that's what TalkBack and VoiceOver are. So TalkBack and VoiceOver are analogous, and TalkBack is the Android version. And it used to be that VoiceOver was way ahead. TalkBack has made a lot of strides. But as I was saying, if you're a Braille user, then that's an additional issue because there's another piece of software on the Android side called BrailleBack, which is an adjunct to TalkBack. And my understanding is that BrailleBack is kind of a little behind VoiceOver. Apple added some great Braille features this year for VoiceOver users that kind of vaulted them ahead a little bit. But it's a lot more competitive than it used to be.
So let's talk about the winners. PickyBot. What does that do?
PickyBot does audio description of images or videos. So if you have an image or a video on your phone, you can send it to PickyBot. You can do it via Share Sheet, or you can do it directly from the app, and it will describe it. There are a lot of tools that will describe images. Be My Eyes will even do it, and it's all AI-based. But what it's trying to do, and sometimes more successfully than others, but what it's trying to do is sort of give a little personality and a little context. So if I have a picture of my cat and I send it off to PickyBot, it'll tell me about my cat, and it'll tell me about the blanket that it's on. It'll say something. The atmosphere of the room is warm and cozy, and I'm like not exactly sure where it gets that from, but it tries to editorialize a little bit. Yeah, very AI. And I don't know what model it uses. Didn't have a chance to look that up. But it'll also do it with videos, which is kind of an unusual thing. So I did run a couple of short videos through it. It's free to do that, but you can get a subscription, so you get access to more credits, and you can do. So that's your app of the year.
Very nice. Any other? There's also Developer of the Year and so forth. Anybody else you want to highlight or mention?
I think not. I am not a gamer. I know that the game this year was a series from
Core Quest Dungeons.
Yeah, right. And so it sounds really fun, but I don't know anything about it. So, and PickyBot won Developer of the Year too. So which often happens. I would say, and this is just my personal opinion. This is not something that's reflected in the AppleVis Awards, but I did have the feeling when I was on the committee trying to nominate things. I have the feeling this is not the kind of a year where there was a lot of just boffo, great, amazing new stuff coming along. PickyBot is fun. I'm sure those games are fun, but I didn't hear anybody in the community going, "Oh my God, this is amazing! This is a breakthrough." But everything does have AI baked in, and for people with blindness and visual impairment, AI is a pretty useful thing, and you end up getting an interesting
transformational. Yeah,
you end up getting interesting conversations with people about whether AI is quote good or quote bad. And there are folks who are blind or visually impaired who are like, AI is wonderful, stop talking bad about AI. And there are others who are a little more realistic and go, it can be great, but at the same time, So I would say it's not a transformational year, but these are still fun, and it's great to see. Usually small developers get recognized by the Golden Apples too,
which is nice.
Every once in a while, it'll be like, my favorite actually, there's an app called Seeing AI, which does a lot of what Be My Eyes does, and actually has some very specific modules for particular kinds of things. Like if you want to know what color something is, or if you want to identify currency, or if you wanted to tell whether there's light in a room or not, Seeing AI has all these modules that will do that. What I love, Seeing AI started as a Skunkworks project in Microsoft. A developer who happens to be blind himself created this thing and just said, can I continue to develop it? And they let him do it. And Microsoft distributes it free. So that is a rare case, not a rare case, I guess, but that is a case where a big company made a thing that the community really adopted and loved. And it's won a Golden Apple in the past, several actually, and still gets nominated quite frequently. But most of the time it is a small developer who has a real specific thing they want to do for the community to meet a need that's out there. And that applies to the games too. And they're not necessarily games that are widely known, but they're games that are specifically designed to be accessible, to have audio as their primary input, that sort of thing. And so it's cool to see that those developers get that recognition at the end of the year.
Yeah. This Adventure to Fate Core Quest is an accessible turn-based
really cool.
RPG Dungeons and Dragons game designed for the iPad. It looks like a really very cool.
It looks fun.
I'm
not a gamer, so
I might want to try it myself.
Check it out.
That's awesome, and it's wonderful that you can have an accessible D&D game. That's really great. You don't have to play Zork anymore. You can move up to
about it, right?
something.
How many times can you get that damn Babelfish and still feel good about it?
Very nice. Thank you, Shelley. I'm glad we could cover that while you were here. We didn't talk about the high end for 2026, the high end picture. Is it still the case that Apple is not going to do a Mac Pro ever again?
Nobody knows. My wish list item there is that I'd like to find out. Like, they're still selling an M2, so they either need to tell us what their plan is with the Mac Pro, or they just need to kill it. But right now, it's in this very weird limbo state. It turns out a trend of my wish list is Apple, just to commit. Just commit. Kill it, or explain why it is not going to get killed, and upgrade it. So we don't know. I don't understand why it exists still. So I would like them either to just go ahead and kill it. There are so few applications for it. It has so left the sphere of what Apple is focused on now because of Apple Silicon. But there are, arguments to be made. I've received some of them when I talk about this. People get really angry about it because, some of the arguments are, but there are, dozens of users who could use this thing. It's like, well, that's not enough for Apple. So I don't know. There's no credible evidence about this. If I had to put money down, I would say the Mac Pro is dead and that the Mac Studio is the solution going forward. Yeah. But if it's not, and I'm not rooting against it, it just doesn't make sense right now. So either Apple has some interesting technological wrinkle that makes it relevant, or it should die. One of those.
Yeah. There's a rumors a few weeks ago that Apple, based on product codes that were found in source for debug files that leaked out, that Apple has at least built and is testing an iMac Pro with an M5 chip, but whether they actually make that or not is yet to be seen. At least they're still thinking about it. But I agree with you, Jason. It's like whatever role a Mac Pro used to serve is being very much served by the Mac Studio, as evidenced by the fact that a few weeks ago, Apple marketing apparently did a very big push with some YouTubers about, hey, look, you can actually now use this for an AI clusters and run like very, very powerful AI models like locally on this cluster. It's like they don't do that by saying, hey, look how well this can edit ProRes files for people who are making videos for YouTube. It's like, no, they're trying to say that this is a supercomputer cluster.
That's the M3 Ultra with its 6 Thunderbolt 5 ports and all of that. Like, that is the most powerful Mac that Apple sells. The Mac Pro is not. It didn't get an update to do the M3 Ultra. It's just sitting there. So, again, I think Apple, ultimately, it owes people an explanation. Like, why is that thing still for sale? I'm not saying we'll get one. And it's entirely possible that they have some customer that's just like, but we need to do cards. There's so few cards that even work with it because you can't do GPU cards anymore. It's just some I/O. But like maybe there's a key customer somewhere. So they're like, all right, well, you can buy this thing. It costs a fortune. It's old tech now, but it's not worth them updating it. So either they should update it or kill it.
They probably have a few dozen in the back room.
I wish they would do. I mean, the thing is, the enclosure thing, people are like, oh, cards and internal storage and all that. It's like, I kind of wish that Apple, instead of making a Mac Pro, would just work with somebody to make a nice enclosure Thunderbolt utility for like, okay, if you want this is how you use it with a Mac Studio, and then just move on.
Remember they made that Tower GPU extender some years ago. I can't remember, was it Blackmagic made it? I can't remember, but Apple sold it. It plugged into like one of the titanium MacBook Pros to give it a external GPU.
Right. Sure. I mean, so they could do that. They could possibly work with a partner and say, like, this solves all the problems for the people who wanted an enclosure. Here's an enclosure you can attach. I mean, some of that stuff already exists, but like a Thunderbolt 5, very high bandwidth, multiple lanes, whatever they need to do. So it's possible that they'll have an answer there, but
so Techie announced something. Scooter X just pointed out at CES. They do a lot of really interesting and fairly low-cost devices. They announced a Thunderbolt 5 dock that looks just like a Mini. I presume goes right under a Mac Mini. It has its built-in SSD enclosure, and has a bidirectional 80 gigabyte. Is it bytes or bits?
Oh, yeah, it looks like a. Yeah, or is that a
must
Mac
be
Studio
bidirectional bandwidth with 120 gigabyte bandwidth boost.
Yeah, I mean Thunderbolt 5 on a Mac Studio, an M3 Ultra Mac Studio, like they're with those 6 Thunderbolt 5 ports. Like it's got a lot. That's why Apple is demoing all that AI stuff with it. So,
right.
Yeah,
$400, which is not bad. But you do need a Thunderbolt 5 cable, which is $40. So,
sure.
People are expensing this. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. That's kind of cute. I don't know if it's as big as a Mac Mini. It looks like a Mac Mini. It'd be nice if it just went right under the Mac Mini. Of course, the on-off switch is under there, so I mean, you don't put anything under your Mac Mini anymore. Let's see. What else was I? Oh, yes. I wanted to talk about expenses, the costs, because there's two issues that are coming up for this year that might really affect the costs of new Macs or even new phones. The new A20 chip is a 2 nanometer chip from TSMC that, according to some reports, will cost as much as $280 a chip. It's almost twice as much as the A19. Increase. That's a big increase. Samsung also has a 2600, which is similarly expensive, these 2 nanometer processes. So those are going to be more expensive. And of course, everybody's talking about the doubling in RAM costs. I don't know the definitive answer to this. Is Apple affected by this or not, is the question. I saw one report that said Apple's contracts for RAM with Samsung expire this month.
Yeah, there's a lot of coverage on it. The consensus from analysts, supply chain analysts, seems to be that Apple's going to be okay. I saw one report that said that Apple typically gets its RAM from 3 different suppliers, that they're leaning more on Samsung now as for their supply. Also, that they don't expect it to really affect how many units that Apple sells in 2026. That was again part of another analyst report about saying that they had a very, very good outlook for Apple in 2026. Again, partly because this analyst was saying that we think that Apple is not going to be affected. Excuse me, this is specifically about notebooks. That the analyst was predicting a 5-point-something% downturn in units shipped in 2026 overall for the industry wide, but they felt as though Apple was still going to be very, very strong because they had successfully navigated the problem of getting access to DRAM and not having it so expensive for them that it was going to tank whatever they're going to have to be charged for it. So they were basically listing Apple as one of the winners in this crisis.
Yeah, they tend to have
the very few winners.
They tend to have the long-term contracts. And when asked about this on the financial results call back in October, the CFO of Apple, Kevin Parrick, said, and he was asked directly, memory prices are going through the roof. How are you managing it? And they said, we're seeing a slight tailwind on memory, so that's actually a positive, and storage prices. I love the wind metaphors.
Yeah.
And nothing really to note here, as we saw from our gross margin performance, we had it in a pretty good spot, and we're guiding to that spot. So I think we're managing costs pretty well. So legally, they can't. They have to tell the truth when they talk stuff like that. And I think that that's the truth of it, is that in the long run, if memory prices stay enormously high, will it affect Apple? Of course it will. But they spend a lot of money hedging and doing long-term contracts, putting lots of money down for high volume in order to not, because for Apple, a smaller company might be playing the market a little, we got to buy when it's low and then we'll stockpile it and all of that. I feel like Apple, as an enormous company that has enormous volume, they spend money in order to not be surprised, right? They talk a lot about foreign exchange. They do a lot of like financial hedging where they buy like opposite currencies so that when things change, it's all just kind of level. And they put money into that because there's value in not being surprised. And so committing to these long contracts for supplies for various parts is in part committing to paying a little more than they probably would have been if they'd played the market in exchange for the certainty that it's not going to go through the roof. And so, in 2 years or 1 year, I don't even know what the time frame is, it could affect them, but thus far they seem very confident. So I would think that in the near term, it's not going to be an issue.
And of course, as somebody, Keith512 has pointed out in the Discord chat, our Club Twit chat, Apple's already got a lot of headroom. They already charge so much for memory.
That is a nice thing.
They can absorb some extra cost.
They can if they need
margins.
To. And they hate to change pricing. So if they can eat a little bit of, in this case, what I just quoted, they say they're not eating margin. But if they wanted to, they could eat a little bit of margin if they had to.
Right.
So don't expect a lot of money in that $500 laptop, memory in that $500 laptop.
No. That's going to be an 8 gig laptop probably, right?
Another similar thing, since we're talking about 2026, Apple bought another year of wiggle room on the China tariffs because those have been delayed, at least for products that Apple makes, until 2027. So that's another tailwind or lack of a headwind if we're using the wind.
All right, we got to do it. It's time for, even without Alex Lindsay, the Vision Pro segment.
What do you see? What do you know? It's time to talk the Vision Pro.
We're now down to only one of our hosts who has a Vision Pro, and you're it, Jason Snell. So there it is. Look at it. It's beautiful. Oh, and you have the thing over the top. Is that the M5 Vision Pro you got?
That is the M5.
Ooh, fancy. Fancy.
Yeah.
Have you, I guess we won't be able to see it till January 9th, but Apple has been putting you in the front row of the Lakers games.
We now have a better idea of this thing that they announced last year, which is that they're going to do live sports on the Vision Pro, and it's going to be these Lakers games. Friday is the first one.
Are these courtside seats?
You need to be so it's really interesting how they've done this. So you need to be in their market, or there will be a replay on Sunday that everybody can see just on the NBA app. What they've done is they've got multiple camera positions. So there are, like, I forget what they said, 7. There are multiple cameras throughout the arena, and it is going to be a directed broadcast. So we're going to have to see how many cuts they make, because what we've learned is that too many cuts is bad. But it does mean, like, when they're on one end, they can cut to under the basket on that end, or they can be in the middle, or they can cut to the basket at the other end, and that there will be multiple camera positions, and somebody is specially directing the game for Vision Pro, and they're doing a handful of these this season and it's all at the Lakers facility, Lakers home games. And Lakers,
first game is January 9th, the
Friday.
Milwaukee Bucks at the Lakers.
And then if you are curious and you have a Vision Pro and you're not in Los Angeles, you will be able to see it on
the following Sunday. Even though,
so a couple day delay,
you already know who won,
and you will need. I mean, the other thing funny here is that you will need a lot of bandwidth because this is a live stream of a live event, of an immersive event. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out too.
And you'll need the NBA app.
The NBA app or the Chart, I think it's Charter is the cable company.
Spectrum,
and so, Spectrum, and so one or the other, but it will just work with the NBA app.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Could be interesting. Well, I will report back. How about that? I promise.
Are you going to watch it?
Absolutely, I will watch it on Sunday because I'm not going to fly to LA to watch it on Friday night. Because you need, even though I wanted to do that, the hotel Wi-Fi is not going to handle an immersive stream.
Right.
So yeah. Anyway, I'll report back on it. But this is, a lot of us have been saying, and if Alex were here, he would say this too. Like, live sports in immersive could be really interesting. Let's see how they do, right?
One thing I'm a little worried about, I'm looking at the clip that's in the Apple press release, and the camera's moving around.
I can't imagine. I think that's the person moving their head around.
Oh, right? That is, you're right. It's not as smooth as a camera.
Yeah, I think that the idea here is that these will all be still
You're looking
placements.
around. So you're going to have a static shot, but you can look around within. That makes more sense. Yeah, it looks like a guy's looking around.
I'm imagining somebody in the cheap seats in the arena with their Vision Pro on, getting a better view than they can with their eyeballs.
Oh, absolutely.
And if there was sufficient bandwidth for them to do it.
Right. How much bandwidth do you think you'll need, Jason?
They say up to 150 Mbps for this.
Really? Wow.
And I'm sure it'll scale down, but like if you want the full experience, you should have a lot of bandwidth for this.
So I would say this is an experiment. This is
Absolutely.
Apple seeing, okay, how does it work? What do we need? Because I'm sure they'd love to do it with Major League Soccer, which they own the rights to. Maybe they'd love to do that with baseball, which
6
would be
games. They're
better
trying.
suited. Yeah.
And
F1,
the advantage,
of course.
the advantage of, and again, this is an Alex thing. The advantage of basketball is it's a very small space versus a giant baseball field or a giant soccer field. So it's probably got advantages. But yeah, they're going to do these 6 tests and with the Lakers, and we'll see what happens. But I'm really excited just because this is one of those areas where immersive sports could be a big, that could be a big selling point for this kind of technology.
It'll sell the Vision Pro, sure.
Yeah.
I've said it before.
Well, I'm just wondering if, because the Lakers are in LA, if that's a strategic play to get the eyeballs of more entertainment industry people on it to get them to develop.
Yeah.
It's possible. It's also possible that there literally was, that they were the ones who said, sure, whatever we could do. I don't know whether it's the alignment of the team and the cable company that owns the rights, or whether it's strategic. It can't hurt, right? Can't hurt.
Yeah, and also there was there's some stories a few weeks ago about how valuable sports is for Apple TV. Simply not just because of the audience, but because there are a lot of people who will sign up for Apple TV just to get access to a certain game, or because one of their favorite teams is having a hot streak and they want to watch it. And a lot of those people don't simply cancel as soon as that game is over with. So it's a really, really good way to bring new users into Apple TV. So anything they can do with sports is going to pay off really well for them.
Speaking of Hollywood, Apple got a few wins at the Critics' Choice Awards. I guess the beginning of the awards season now. So congratulations to Apple, which won for F1. I finally saw F1.
We got to take off the Vision Pro.
Oh, it's not a Vision Pro segment. End the Vision Pro segment.
We're done talking the
Thank you, Andy.
Wow, this segment has an outro too.
It does,
That's
Shelley.
impressive.
And intro.
Just trying to help.
If we don't do the outro, we can't close the Vision Pro segment. It's gonna be
We left it open
bad.
one time, and it was like there's a whole week where the week was the Vision Pro segment.
Our code editor is complaining about an unmatched brace, so we got to close that brace.
Yep.
I finally got to see F1 once Apple made it free, and I'm glad I didn't pay for it. Let me put it that way. Really not. It's surprising. I mean, it got great reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. I think it's in the 80s or 90s. I mean, it's got really good reviews. Excellent box office. Very poor film. Okay.
Interesting. I thought it was fine. I thought it was like a Top Gun movie or something. It's really about the action.
Here's my capsule.
And so technically interesting and looks interesting and sounds great, but the story was just like whatever.
The story was I felt like the script, the plot was all just kind of and then
it's
there's a bad guy.
Placeholders to do
just stuff to separate the action sequences. The problem is I'm an F1 fan, and the action sequences felt like a video game. They didn't feel like real F1 racing, and it didn't help that they used the announcers from Sky Sports Crofty. And they put echo behind them for some reason. I don't know.
Yeah, like they were on the PA. That didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. So the whole thing, from the point of view of an F1 fan, anyway, it was a mediocre movie with a bad plot and a bad script, and the action sequences looked like Forza or something. They didn't look real. So I'm just, all I could say is I'm glad I didn't pay for it. However, it did win the best editing and best sound from the Critics' Choice. Highest grossing sports feature of all time. So I guess I'm just wrong. Oh. The studio got Best Actor in a Comedy Series for Seth Rogen, Best Supporting Actor for Ike Barinholtz. Pluribus and Severance. I'm glad to see Rhea Seehorn has got a Best Actress in a Drama Series. She seemed quite surprised by that. Maybe she's just a very good actor.
And Tramel Tillman.
Yeah,
Severance.
and Trammell, who's wonderful in Severance, got Best Supporting Actor, so glad to see that. Best Limited Documentary Series and Best Biographical Documentary for Mr. Scorsese. Best Supporting Actor for Michael Urie in Shrinking. Best Foreign Language Series, Pachinko. Oh, wait a minute. This in 2023. I'm sorry. I guess I'm looking at old ones. Never mind. Forget it. Anyway, congratulations to Apple for scoring. I guess this is the beginning of what they hope will be a run. You've got the Golden Globes and the
next week.
And the Emmys and then the Oscars and all of that. By the way, bad news for Pluribus fans. It is now kind of everybody has gotten used to the idea that Vince Gilligan says it's going to be a while. Like 2028 for season 2. How long was it between the seasons on the Severance? It was a while, wasn't it?
It was a while, but it's a different situation. They had strikes and stuff like that. He said it'd be a while, but I also think they're shooting it this spring. So
Reyes says they're in the writers' room.
Yeah.
But I think this is a very hard show to shoot. There's a lot of detail in it, and Gilligan says we're not going to rush. So maybe they're lowering expectations so they can make us happy.
I mean, it's end of. My feeling is that it's sometime probably at this point next year, but maybe not like end of next year. I think it depends on how ambitious they are, and also how quickly Apple wants something. I'm sure Apple doesn't want him to rush, but at the same time, it would be really nice if people remembered what the show was by the time it came back. So.
It does happen from time to time that you get shows that come back where you just have no idea, like what happened.
Right.
This one I might remember.
Right.
I don't have.
The other thing you do is the slow horses thing, right? Where you're like, actually, why don't we commission 2 seasons?
They crank those out, yeah.
And you can work on the writing of 2 seasons at once, and then you can shoot 2 seasons, and then you got a little more content over time. That would be nice.
Yeah. Also coordinating schedules between a lot of in-demand actors.
Yeah.
If you can book them for twice as much in one stretch so they can do whatever they want before and after it, that's going to help a lot.
Yeah. I think we can wrap things up unless you have a lot more stories in here, Andy. You've been very busy. I guess I should mention, although I find it somewhat revolting, Steve Jobs' auction of Steve Jobs' personal stuff.
Yeah, our auction does an annual Apple themed auction like every January and February. As a matter of fact, I had something in one of their Apple auctions a couple of years ago, and this year they have the usual. Okay, here's a bunch of Apple One stuff. Here's a bunch of, but they also have here's some of Steve Jobs' old bow ties. Here is the Volkswagen repair manual that he sold when he started the company.
That's weird.
Here's a couple of his business cards. Here's
his 8-track tapes.
His 8-track tapes. That was
his bedroom desk.
Can you imagine Steve Jobs in a Volkswagen cursing at an 8-track tape player because it was jamming his tapes? That would have been something to see.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I don't know. This is a little creepy, if you ask me.
It's a little psychophanty. It's like, I want to have an 8-track tape because I can see someone saying, you know what, that's an interesting historical item. Here is like an article of here's an auction item that is like one of Apple's founding documents. Okay, like, hey, well, I've always been inspired by Steve Jobs as an entrepreneur. Here is like his autograph on a business card. Okay. But again, when you're saying that here is just a thing that he happened to own once, it's like, okay, maybe.
It's weird that somebody, presumably in his family, held on.
I think
to
it might be his father.
One of these things is actually a new Apple business card with a note that he wrote on it saying, "Hey, I'm back at the old place," to his dad. And so,
is his dad still alive? Probably not. I don't know. Boyhood bow ties retrieved from his boyhood closet. It's gotta be. It's just, this is creepy as heck. Anyway, I guess you can buy it. There's a lot of it. Steve Jobs documents signed for the sale of his father's car.
Yeah. That's where you're starting to get to. Okay, so here is a shoe that Marilyn Monroe did not wear, but was selected for her to look at while costuming Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. It's like, okay.
Yeah. Most, some of these are fairly affordable. The bow ties are only a few $100. If you need bow ties, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, it'd be a good deal.
But would you wear them if you spent a few $100
Were
on
they
them?
clip-ons? I didn't notice.
Oh my God.
let me go back here.
We need. If you buy it, do like a test to see how much residual charisma is in the bow ties, because I'm sure there's still a detectable non-zero amount of charisma.
I don't know. I thought all his charisma was transferred to the turtlenecks when he started wearing those.
No, well, again, because he replaced them every day, they didn't have a chance to the half-life of charisma.
I see.
also the
so they'll never go for hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Those turtlenecks.
These the current bid
unless
for
you get like the whole reel. I understand that it was like on a big reel, like a Scotch tape dispenser, and every morning he just like pull down and tear off a new one. So
I can see buying these bow ties.
Or if you can get the one that if you can prove that that's the one he introduced the iPhone in or something like that.
You're going to get a dozen bow ties for only $267. That's less than $20 each. Or a little more than. I think it's a good deal. Oh, they are clip-ons. I'm sorry.
If it's one of those spinning bow ties, I meant
it's a clip-on. It's
hard to find a good vintage spinning
Makers
bow tie
include Tyrex, Ormond, Wembley, Spur, Evergrip, and Best Clip.
So
in overall fine
of brands.
Condition.
Wow.
So he wore clip-on bow ties in high school. Okay. I think maybe that's.
Was he in a barbershop quartet? Is that why they have so many clip-on bow ties from high school? Was he in swing choir?
He was that weird kid who wore bow ties in high school. I think we've learned something here. All right, kids. Let us take a break, and when we come back, your picks of the week coming up. I do want to pause for a moment and thank our club members. You might have seen one ad in this show. That means, really, this show is brought to you, for the most part, by our club members. Now, the good news is if you're a club member, you didn't see any ads in this show. So that's good news. I'll tell you what. Here's my pitch for joining the club. Ad-free versions of all the shows, sure. Although a lot of our club members listen to the shows with ads because they like the ads. That's fine. I don't mind. You also get access to the Club Twit Discord, which is a lot of fun. It's a great social group hangout for all the people who listen. There's quite a few people in there, almost 10,000, I think. And it's not just during the shows, the discussions about all kinds of, geeky stuff. There's even, our a couple of custom Minecraft servers you can join and so forth. We also do events. We did a couple of really good events on Friday. I interviewed, and this is one of the things about club events that I like. I can be as weird as I want. So I interviewed a guy who just wrote a book called Love Johnny Carson about Johnny Carson, who I happen to love as well. And so Mark Malkoff joined us and we talked about the book. We did our AI users group right after. That's been a really great show. We do that every month. Home Theater Geeks, Micah's Crafting Corners coming up January 14th. That's a chill place to hang with Micah and other crafters I think Micah's been doing Lego, but you could do any kind of craft. Our photo show is that Friday, the 16th, with Chris Marquardt. We're taking glamorous pictures, so we're going to look for yours. And Stacy's Book Club, we have announced a date for that, the end of the month, January 30th. Very interesting book, The Heist of Hollow London. You have time to read it if you wish, and join us in our discussion on January 30th. That's the kind of thing that happens in the club. Those shows are streamed to the public and then are hidden from public eye for a month. They appear in the Twit Plus feed only, and then later we put them on our YouTube channel for everybody to see. So everybody can see them a month later. But the club is really, we try to give you some benefits because it really is a very important way that we finance what we do. 25%, and I suspect this year it's going to be more than that, of our operating costs come from your very generous support. So twit.tv/clubtwit. Thank you for your support if you're a club member. And if you're not, I invite you to consider it. twit.tv/clubtwit. Thank you very much. I will not use it. I promise to buy Steve Jobs bow ties. That money does not go into my pocket. Let's do our picks of the week. And now, Shelley, I'm going to give you the pride of place. You are our special guest today. Is there anything you'd like to mention as a pick? I think you already have in a way, haven't you?
Well, actually, Leo, you kind of stole my pick earlier because I didn't know we were going to talk about the AppleVis Golden Apples, and I talked about PickyBot already, which was going to be my pick.
Well, make it. You can do more detail if you want.
I don't have a lot more to say. Like I say,
okay.
But I will give you a high concept pick because sometimes when I'm in a situation like this, I look around my office and I think, what could I pick? I came up with a weird one. So I used to go, I don't do it any longer, but I used to go bowling at a place here in Austin, Texas called Sangarunde Hall. And it is they have a 6-lane bowling alley, and it is sort of a club, but you can also go bowl. They have a league, right? So I used to do this, and the bowling alley is quite old and somewhat decrepit, but we had the guy that kept it in pretty good shape. Well, so one time I went to the bowling alley. Pick this up. I have visual aids. One time I went down to the bowling alley and I threw myself a strike, and I got a souvenir of that strike.
Do you have a trophy?
This.
Oh, a broken pin.
I broke this pin
from Sangarundi.
Wow. Right, and the great thing about so what I'm picking is Sangarundi Hall is a place to go bowling, but specifically the idea that you would go bowling at a place where they would actually give you the pin that you broke as a
nice. Plus, they have beer. In fact, they do something called Prostapalooza.
Oh, yeah, they have a great Oktoberfest celebration every year, too. They're adjacent to a restaurant called Schultz Garden, which is actually about the oldest restaurant in Austin, and there is an enormous beer garden, and every Oktoberfest season, they do a wonderful Oktoberfest. Austin being a barbecue town, they have a lot of different barbecue vendors that bring sausage, and they're different kinds of German beer,
That's
and
hysterical.
it is a lot of fun.
That's hysterical.
And I got my broken bowling pin souvenir.
And you got your broken bowling pin.
Yes.
So this sounds like if you're I always think in Austin, I'm going to go have Tex-Mex. I don't usually think of German food. But
there's not much German food. And it's, I wouldn't say that Sangarundi's food is the main attraction. I think that the atmosphere is the main attraction. The food is fine. The food is good. I like it. But the real reason to go to Sangarundi is to sit out in that really awesome beer garden. Or if you're fortunate enough to have a chance to go bowling, go bowling.
Or if you want to see a bunch of middle-aged women in dirndls singing, you could also do that. It's just,
the
your
Damen
choice.
Corps, yes.
Do you sing with the Damen Corps?
I do not. I did. My sister's mother-in-law did, however.
How fun.
Sangarundi, it was actually a club created as a German male singing group. And they had the Damen Corps because the uppity women got so annoyed that they weren't allowed to be in the Sangarundi.
They got the
Damen Corps for them.
The minor corps and the Damen Corps.
Yeah.
I love it. It's so nice to see you, Shelley. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. We always love having you on the show, and we'll have you back very soon.
Great.
Absolutely. Mr. Andy Anatko, I know you want to pick your hot new volume, Cyberspeak, but okay, what else you got?
It's a rare collectible. Well, first of all, I want to say Christos Resuscitia to Orthodox Christians who,
Is it
like
today?
me, their mean bosses are forced them to work on Christmas Eve. 3 ghosts tonight. Don't be surprised, Leo. 3 ghosts.
3 ghosts come tonight.
I do. You did give me tomorrow off, so I suppose that's something.
Yes.
But also my is a service that a friend of mine used over the holiday that I'd never heard of. That's been around for a couple of years. But as soon as I heard of it, it's like, oh my god, I've wanted this through so many different trips. It's called Bounce.com, and it's a luggage storage service where you download an app, and let's say like this has happened to me so many times. Like I'm in New York. And like I'm out of the hotel, of course, like at 11 a.m. or like I'm out of my friend's house like at 9 or 10 a.m. My train home isn't until like 7 or 8 or later, and I want to like have lunch with maybe a friend, and maybe I want to like see a show like before I go home. But the thing is, like I've got this backpack full of like 2 or 3 days worth of stuff, and I don't want to carry that all over the city for the rest of the day. So under these circumstances, I would use the Bounce app on my phone. It would find me a place that's nearby or near Penn Station or wherever, and then I could simply book it to simply say you're going to hold on to my bag for a day, and they will charge about $5 to $10. It will include $10,000 worth of insurance that many people say actually works. Of course, there are going to be some people who said that did not work out for me. And these aren't like Bounce-owned lockers. It's like, no, this is a hotel that's agreed to like make some more money by accepting bags from Bounce.com. It might be a convenience store that simply says, right, we've got a closet that we're using to, again, as a side hustle to take some of these bags. The idea is that you do have to take it to the place and drop it off. But the idea now, I probably would not give it like my laptop bag with my MacBook and my nice camera. However, a bag full of like 2 and 3 year old laundry and cables, absolutely. If it means I don't have to carry like this 20-pound backpack into the Metropolitan Opera House and out again. So it seems like one of those picks where it's like I'm going to have this app on my phone, and then I'm going to forget all about it until the next time I'm in San Francisco or I'm in DC or I'm even just in Boston, where I had to bring my stuff to do MacBreak from the library, but I'm still having to do it with somebody. $5 to $10 to simply say, I'm going to drop this bag here and not have to deal with it until it's time for me to actually go home, seems like a very good spend of $5 to $10.
This makes a lot of sense. I mean, if you're staying at a hotel, you leave the bags at the hotel. But if you're not spending the night, if you're not staying in the hotel, it's nice to be able to leave the bags at a hotel, and they welcome you. So you make the reservation ahead of time. You can search for the hotel nearest where you want to do that. I'm just looking near my son's sandwich shop. There's a perfect place to do that. So I could just take the train there, leave the luggage there, go have a fine French dip sandwich, and then bounce, literally.
It's a lot cheaper than the same service in the train station in Scotland, as I found out.
I bet it is.
In May.
Yeah.
Because we were up against it. Like, where do you we weren't staying at a hotel nearby, and it's like the train station, and they see you coming, and like that'll be £30 or whatever.
Wow.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to leave a little tip for the guy. So maybe it's, $5 plus, but that's pretty good. Look at all the locations in New York. It's a bunch of cities. Oh, this is a good tip, Andy. Thank you. Bounce.
Again, haven't used it myself, but a friend used it and had good success with it. And absolutely, the next time I'm in New York, there's a place like just a block away from Penn Station.
Yeah.
So I can definitely see. I usually stay with my friend in Queens, so it's like, guess what? I'm gonna. Yeah, and we're going back to Penn Station anyway, so it's like, I would, at any point in my life over the past 10, 15 to 20 years, if I could have given someone $7.80 to trustworthily, could you make me not have to carry this 25-pound bag until 2 a.m. when my red-eye train home goes? I would have given them that money and double it.
Yeah. This is interesting. So, very good idea. And they even have reviews of the difference. A lot of them are called storage spots. They're not all hotels. So there are places.
some again, it's lots of different places. That's when I was preparing this pick, I was looking for reviews. Again, some of them will be, it's actually a hotel and they'll lock in the concierge closet. Sometimes it really is like, this is just a store or a convenience store that will simply stash your bag behind the counter or stash your bag someplace. Again, the idea is that part of when you booking through the app means that they will give you $10,000 worth of insurance if something happens to your bag.
Nice.
Again, don't know how easy it is overall to claim that, which is why, again, I will not be putting my $1,500 to $2,000 worth of tech gear in the hands of this. But again, for a backpack full of stinky laundry and toiletries and cables, I will risk that for $7.30.
And now, finally, Mr. Jason Snell of sixcolors.com. Your pick of the week, my friend.
I used to use QuickTime Player a lot as a utility. The old version of QuickTime Player, you used to be able to, for example, take a video and cut out parts of it and then save the video back out. It was very convenient. I still have to do this. For example, if we do a D&D podcast and we members to the Incomparable get access to the raw recording after we play, and we take a break after an hour and go to the bathroom and get food or do whatever. And I clip that out of the audio file using Fission from Rogue Amoeba, which is a great utility. But the video file has this 10-minute gap. And I used to use QuickTime. And I thought, there's got to be a solution to this. You can use FFmpeg to do it in the command line. But there is an open source app called Lossless Cut. And there's a GitHub project. You can find it there. It does this. You set an in point and an out point. You can do, in my case, I set in and out on the two content areas, and then you could just say export this as one file, and it goes. It's got lots of other features. It's great for cutting things up. It's a GUI on top of FFmpeg stuff. There's a Patreon. Also, you can just buy it in the Mac App Store for $19, and that supports the developer and the development of it. So you don't have to go to the GitHub, but it is an open source project on GitHub as well. I used it this weekend. I bought it because I was like, I'm going to support this, and now I have a utility to do the thing that I used to be able to do and can't do anymore in QuickTime, which is chop up video and make a shorter version. And you could do it if you've got a recording with commercials in it from TV. You could cut out the commercials, for example. That would be a thing you could do. Lots of stuff like that.
It does support black scene detection and scene, so you can actually probably automate that somewhat.
Great.
Yeah.
Probably so.
Yeah.
Anyway, I had never heard of this before. I did some searching trying to find it, and this is what I came up with, and it looks really nice. It's not like the simplest interface in the world, but once you figure out the basic commands. It's actually very easy to use and does exactly what you want. Nice to have a GUI for this video utility. So lossless cut on GitHub or on the Mac App Store.
Very nice. Thank you, Jason. Sixcolors.com. Go to sixcolors.com/Jason for a list of his multifarious podcasts.
Yes, please.
And thank you for your support. Don't quit. Please, I beg
I'm not going to quit, or
don't take a job at Apple.
I'm not employable anymore. So yeah, I'll be right here.
I thought I don't know. I thought Alex Lindsay was unemployable, but I guess I was wrong. So
I guess
they're coming for you next, Leo.
No, I am literally unemployable. Thank you, Andy Yanako. Anything you want to share besides Happy Christmas?
I had a successful test of an important feature yesterday, and I'm very, very happy about that. So we've slouched slightly closer to Bethlehem.
I love it. I thank you so much for being here, Andy.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. And again, Shelley, you're fantastic. Shelley Brisbane.
Thanks for having me.
TexasStandard.bluesky.social, Shelley.brisbane.net. Anything else you want to plug?
I don't know. Well, just because I was with some friends on an Incomparable podcast last night that is not public yet, but I will say over on the Incomparable Network, I do a podcast called Lions, Towers, and Shields. And if you want to hear about movies made in 1930, that's where we talk about them.
Baby.
Oh, now I'm interested.
Yes.
Okay.
Shelley's old movie podcast. And yeah, stay tuned. Shelley will be one of the many guests on the Incomparable number 800. A high number for most podcasts, just not MacBreak Weekly. That's going to be at the end of next week.
Nice.
Number 800.
Lions and Towers and Shields.
Lions, Towers, and Shields. I can't even say the name of my own show, Leo. I'm clearly a professional.
Give me what's the latest?
So we cover classic films, generally 1930 to 1960. Although what my panelists do is they say, "Yeah, I know 1960, but there's a really great movie from 1969," and I go, "Okay, fine." I let my panelists run me around a lot, and I enjoy it very much because we have a rotating panel of folks who are interested in various areas of film, and they start conversations by saying, I know this is probably too recent, but...
And it's always one film, or is it more
It's
than
always one film and 3 or 4 panelists, usually.
Oh, my gosh. I got to listen to this. This is great, because I love it.
I hope you will, and you can come on anytime. You'd be welcome to come on if you
okay.
like.
I'd love to be on your show.
All right.
I'd love to be on any show, to be honest.
Yeah, I know you have hardly any shows to be on.
Have I mentioned that I'm unemployable?
Wait, it doesn't pay, Leo.
Oh no, I don't want to get paid. That's a silly
You just want fame. That's what you want.
All I'm seeking is fame. We do MacBreak Weekly every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1900 UTC. You can watch us do it live. We stream it on YouTube, Twitch, X.com, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Kick, and of course in the Club Twit Discord for our club members. After the fact, you can also get shows, audio or video or both, from our website, twit.tv/mbw. There is a video posted on YouTube every week. There is, in fact, a dedicated MacBreak Weekly channel on YouTube you can subscribe to. Ring the bell, hit the ting, and do the bung, and dung da bung, whatever the kids say. And, of course, the best thing to do is subscribe in your favorite podcast player. It costs nothing, and that way you'll get it automatically every Tuesday after the show has been recorded. Thank you, everybody. Great to see you all. I hope you all have a happy New Year. It's our first show of 2026. Let's make it a good year. And unfortunately, as often happens on this show, it is my sad and solemn duty to tell you, get back to work. Break time is over. See you next week.